Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Never done this before, so pray for me.
14 years.
Can you imagine? Eventually, it's going to happen. Yeah, he's had a meeting. He said he's going to run up to 10 minutes late. Are we ready? All right, everyone, we're ready to begin our CRA Executive Board meeting. So if everyone can please, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, but I'd like to also offer a moment of silence on behalf of one of our long-standing city commissioners and county commissioners and Mayor Sue Gunsberger, who passed away this weekend. So if we could, while we stand, have a moment of silence for her, please. Oh, and also my mother passed away. If we could have a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and start with the roll call.
Board Member Shuhan. Board Member Hernandez. Here. Board Member Gruber. Here. Board Member Biederman. Here. Board Member Quintana. Here. Vice Chair Kalari.
Here.
Chair Levy.
Any conflict disclosures before we start the meeting? Hearing none. We're going to go ahead and start with our 9 a.m. citizen comments. Thank you. First, we have Andre Brown, followed by Richard Sharpazan, I believe, and then Bob Glickman. Good morning, Andre.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good
Vice
morning.
Mayor. I don't have my glasses on, so y'all gotta forgive me. Commissioners and city manager, and to all my brothers and sisters. I want to just say a reference about District 2. I do travel to different districts and areas, and I put a check of things that I see and try to report anything I see. Commissioner Hernandez, they're looking good in District 2. You know, we could tell that you're out and about as a commissioner, checking your community and seeing what's going on. But ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, he can't do it by himself. He needs everyone help within that District 2. If you see something, say something. Call them. That goes for any of these commissioners up here. If you don't give him the information, how would he know? How would he know what's not going on? I seen a few of the lights was out down 26, near those trees. I didn't get the address, but what I do, Commissioner, I send you the location of any lights that I see out. I don't know if the city changed who doing the lights now, who are they responsible for, but that's not my job to get involved with. But if I see something, I'm gonna say something. I am in a great mood today. Even though my nephew is over there in Kuwait, and I know what time it is, as being a service guy myself, and all the prayers and everything for all the soldiers over there. He called me by phone. I said, get off that phone. You're not supposed to be on no freaking phone. You're in war right now, you know. But I just want to leave this to everyone. We and everyone, please pray, because that's what we need right now. This country is really, really, I don't recognize it no more. You got those cells, Iran cells over here in our country. Just watch your back. That's all I can say. May God bless everyone. And our last thing, I went out on 56 dump out there, and somebody privatized that sanitation department out there. And I was talking to the people out there. That's a shame. That is a shame. You privatize sanitation out there on 56th Avenue. They'll reap what they sow, what they did.
Thank you, Andre. Next up, Richard. I'm sorry if I didn't say your last name correctly. Sharpazan, is that it?
Get it right, I'd be concerned.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. Well, good morning. I hope everyone's doing well. I know you guys may be tired of me talking about this, but I'm here again about the A1A and Carolina Street light. As a reminder, up until last year, you guys were told that mid-block crosswalks were not permitted, so you voted in favor of this Carolina Street traffic light because it was better than nothing. But you were always shocked that we couldn't have mid-block crosswalks. After I personally met with DOT and made you guys aware of that we were allowed mid-block crosswalks at the September 3rd CRA meeting, we requested that you put this traffic light on hold until you guys received some mid-block crosswalk concepts. At that meeting, Rick Mittinger stated FPL still needed to remove their poles before the lights could be installed, and that wouldn't happen until December. He could have engineering provide concepts with and without pedestrian counts prior to this light being installed. You guys directed Rick and the CRA to do this, to provide these mid-block concepts with and without the Carolina Street light. It is now March, well past December promised date, 6 months later, and we don't have anything. The Carolina Street, from what I'm told, no longer needs to have the FPL poles removed and could be installed in a few weeks, if not sooner. Not only are you guys we feel you're being ignored regarding the request for these mid-block crosswalks. There are 2 additional lights that looks like they're going to be installed as well, and I provided some handouts for that. These lights are too close to the bridge and will wreak havoc, congesting traffic onto the bridge, and none of the required studies have been done to justify these lights. We do not need lights, especially where nobody is crossing the street. This is a major waste of money. We need mid-block crosswalks every few blocks. This light could also prevent crosswalks for where they actually needed. So I have 2 questions or requests. The main request, which we've been asking, can we please put this light on hold until you get the requested mid-block crosswalk concepts? There's no harm in putting this on hold. And again, if I'm wrong, the traffic light's needed, I go away, we're fine. The second is, I don't want to waste a lot of everybody's time on this. To me, it seems the city and CRA is either just ignoring your requests on this, because it's been going on for a long time, or providing misleading information, or somebody else directed them not to provide this. So again, I just would like to know what direction I should go in, or if we can put this on hold.
Thank you, Richard. And just for the record, the clerk, apologies for my tardiness, but I am here for the attendance and roll call. Thank you. Next on public comment is Bob Glickman.
Hi, good morning. Bob Glickman, Hollywood Beach. I'd like to request that I'm able to speak on item 9 today. I know it's a presentation, but it's of
You'll
great
be able to.
concern. Thank you. Thank you for fixing the potholes on the Hollywood Beach Bridge there. There were about 20 potholes that needed fixing. Hooray. I'm glad to see that. I would like to see if we can get a residential parking permit for the beach residents. We seem to be doing it in other parts of the city. We still need something here on the beach for the residents that live there. And I know we've brought this up plenty of times. We've had plenty of parking studies, and each parking study said that we should have something. So please, if we can get something done. And the other thing is, we also need a truck ordinance, especially for the tractor trailers that are parking along A1A. There need to be delivery times, smaller trucks. They try to go up to Surf Road. They can't get through. They back down the streets. They park in the middle of the street on A1A, and then also they have those mobilized food things that they can bring up to the restaurants. But this is just not working out. It's a dangerous situation that, we just don't seem to address, and it's, going on 20 years, so I just hope that we can finally, eventually do something about that. I'm glad to hear that maybe the FDOT secretary is coming here next month. That'll be a big relief to a lot of us. I would like to also ask that if we can pass or institute some kind of a solar ordinance. There are people that are putting solar panels on their homes. When they purchased their home, they knew what could be built next to it. Now that we're changing areas and we're putting racks in, now somebody that has solar panels on their home, now they have a 4 or 5 or 6-story building next to them blocking the solar panels. They've spent $30,000 to $50,000 on panels, and now they're going to be obsolete. I think we need to take into consideration something being done for these people that have already played by the rules. They knew what they had, and then we changed the zoning where they live, and through no fault of their own, there's a problem. And I think it's something that we need to address, and especially nowadays, we all seem to be ecological minded, and we want to do all the best things that we can for our city, our state, our country, but yet these people that are doing something, they have no recourse. And this just doesn't seem right, and I think we should take the lead on this in our city here of Hollywood and protect these people that have made a huge investment on something, and now it could be obsolete. So it's something I'd like to just bring to the forefront for all of you to think about and maybe consider somewhere down the line. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes 9 a.m. citizens' comments. Next on our agenda are the consent items. These are items 5 through 7, the approval of previous meetings' minutes.
Second.
We have a motion from Board Member Biederman and a second from Board Member Vice Chair Coleri to approve the consent items. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, those items carry unanimously. On to item number... I'm sorry, I think I might have left out item 8 as a consent item. So are there any speaker cards on item 8? No?
No
All right.
speaker cards.
I'll accept the motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion from Vice Chair Coleri, second from Board Member Quintana to approve item number 8. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the item carries unanimously. All right, moment we've all been waiting for, the regular agenda. A presentation by the CRA regarding the Central Beach District, east-west streets, backflow preventers, and street raising options and cost. Executive Director, this has been an item that we've all discussed for a long time now, and we're really happy to finally see this analysis here and hopefully give you some direction.
Correct. As Sarita gets ready to make the presentation here, going back a few months ago and beyond, obviously a lot of discussions on this issue for Central Beach to see what options there were with the east-west streets and related to flooding issues, whether it be raising the streets, the WAPROs, pumps, whatever. And especially important that we kind of synthesize our posture on this because, yes, although it's changed a couple times, the FDOT secretary is now scheduled to be at next month's CRA meeting. So in preparation for that opportunity, this way we can kind of consolidate our posture on where we're at on this, what we want to do, and who would be responsible for what under an interlocal agreement, and hopefully we can have that all queued up for him. But with that, Sarita will present the important information we have.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, board members. My name is Sarita Shama, Senior Project Manager at Hollywood CRA. I'm going to be presenting the evaluation that we did for the redundant backflow preventers and the street profile elevations. Back in December 10, the board directed us to evaluate and present a cost estimate to add WAPROs on 30 streets in the Central Beach segment, from Hollywood Boulevard to Sherman Street. So during this time, we reached out to a vendor that has a contract with Public Utilities. We got a cost estimate for the 30 WAPROs installations, just to note that 4 WAPROs have already been installed, and the board requested that we only use information that we already had. So we used visual observations. We got GIS profiles from the City of Hollywood Public Utilities. We got some information from the Stormwater Master Plan, and also the Scalar report that was funded by DOT. So this rubric represents a summary of our findings. We evaluated the backflow preventers, the street profiles, and the proposed stormwater pump stations. So for the City of Hollywood resiliency initiatives, installing these WAPROs is a very efficient way to control localized flooding, and this cost is $1.3 million. Raising of the street profiles also provides localized improvements, but it has a higher cost. Just the lowest 5 streets will cost $6.4 million. But it's also very important to notice that while we can provide some localized improvements, because we depend on the FDOT drainage network in order to reach the level of service that we are required, this needs to be a comprehensive approach in which we need to partner with FDOT and also have city funding, which has already been provided in blue for the design and installation of 2 pump stations in addition to the 3 pump stations that we already participated with DOT. So this is just a summary. So on phase 4, we already installed 16 out of the 18 WAPROs, and by observation, we've already seen that there's an improvement with king ties. We've got positive feedbacks from the residents, and all that investment that we have done for raising the streets and installing the WAPROs requires some level of maintenance, but that cannot replace the need that we have to partner with DOT and to have a mechanical system along the corridor. So just a summary. What does a backflow preventer do? It basically protects the city right away from incoming high tides from the intracoastal. Does not address stormwater flooding. It requires maintenance and does not stop tidal flooding from the seepage from the groundwater. And the street raisings are also a localized improvement because we do improve the flooding depth just by the fact of elevating the road. We reduce that flooding by the amount of depth that the road is elevated. However, that creates improvements by reducing the flooding from the high tides, from pervious areas, from groundwater coming in many times. It also helps with the INA, the infiltration from the pipes, and even sometimes cracks in the pavement. just a review of the CRA geographical area and where all these backflow preventers are located. We have on the intracoastal 16 checkmates, 1 flap gate, and 6 waypros. Those are on the seawall. And then we have 16 WAPRs that has already been installed and 4 WAPRs that have already been installed in the Central Beach segment. It's just a review. And also as a summary of a very important element, which is the mechanical system and where we're at with this evaluation that was initially presented in August of 2020 when the Scalar report basically stated that we needed up to almost, 26, I believe it was the number, of localized stormwater pump stations. So the yellow squares are those pumps that are under construction where the city, the CRA, and other agencies participated. They're under construction, that they're estimated to be completed in 2027. The hatch blocks are those pump stations that has been provided in our capital program to be funded and constructed, where one of the pump stations is already 90% designed, and the second pump station is in the ranking process to select an engineering consultant. And then the purple squares are those pumps that have been recommended by the Scalar report that was released in August of 2020. And this is the cost of the WAPRs installations. The purple stars are those WAPRs that have already been installed. This is a cost provided by a contractor. It includes mobilization, MOT, inlet protection. It's soup to nuts here, turnkey. It requires yearly maintenance. And as I noted, we already have 4 waypros that have already been installed. So let's move along to the profiles. We have 35 streets along the Central Beach segment. Sherman Street is a pedestrian walkway that is at the elevation of the sidewalk. So that specific street does not connect to the intracoastal waterways. Therefore, there is no need to install a WAPRO in that street. That's why we're only analyzing 34 out of the 35 streets. So just in order to simplify, we selected a high profile and the low profile. As you can see, the right-of-way, A1A, and the city right-of-way, the same as Surf Road, they vary as A1A curves to the east, to the west, the topography also changes. So not only the length of the street is different, but also where the right-of-way and the FDOT right-of-way interconnects. One interesting thing to note is that all of the outfalls are relatively at the same elevation, which is around 2.5. So in this case, this is Liberty Street. We go from 1.6 NAVD to almost 7 NAVD. In contrast, we have Arizona Street, which is at 0.7 at the right-of-way location, and if I read well, it's 5. So there's a 2-foot differential between the high from one street to the other. To illustrate better, perdón.
No, go ahead.
So I'm just going to show the 5 highest profiles versus the 5 lowest profiles. So we start with New Mexico. We continue with New Hampshire, Liberty, Scott, and Harding. And the lowest profiles, we have Taylor Street, Buchanan Street, Polk, Arizona, and Tyler Street. Just so that everybody can visualize all of the streets, this histogram shows all of the 34 streets, and you can see that the highest profile is New Hampshire, and you can also note below the current high tide of 2.5 where we are and which streets are the most vulnerable ones. So this is the cost to raise the 6 lowest streets, $6.4 million, and that includes, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we did material takeoffs, and we did an opinion of probable cost. This final chart shows all of the streets. Since obviously we understand that this is a priority phase, not all the streets are in a vulnerable position as the lowest streets. So if there is funding available, we can move on to the next phase. So this is, as far as my presentation goes, I'm going to turn on the conclusions to CDM Smith, Jonathan Goldman.
Thank you, Sarita. Excellent work there, Sarita. Thank you.
Good morning, board members. John Goldman, CDM Smith, stormwater engineer for the city, your consultant. I'm here to facilitate the discussion about potential recommendations. So just in summary for what Sarita was saying, so city streets backflow prevention. It's a quick and easy way to stop tidal flooding. It only helps on the east side of the street, obviously. Helps at the city's catch basins. You've seen where if it's leaking anywhere else, it's coming down the street and still coming into that area. She mentioned that it is an additional 30 odd valves that need to be maintained every year, but that's the cost of living down here. And it buys you a little bit of time to figure out which streets to raise, because those can go in pretty quickly. And contractors are very familiar with that. There's not a lot of harmonization or other things that need to happen. And you'll still have the problem at the low streets of the groundwater when the tides come up, bubbling up through the ground. And remember, repeat it up and down every tide cycle, and these high tides begins to granulate the subbase and the base course, and eventually your roads fail. So you can't get away from raising streets forever, but if you want immediate results, that's a good way to do it. The surf road is high enough head that it shouldn't pose much of a problem for head loss, although you do look at each one individually, and it buys you some time so you're not relying on FDOT to constantly fix the system, and you've taken that into your own hands. So that's pretty much a discussion on the backflow preventers. I think we covered that the last meeting I was here, and it sounded like everybody was kind of in favor of that. Remember, street raising, right? That's an immediate flood for both high tide and for the stormwater. If you can go up 12 inches, you've just bought yourself 12 inches. But every street's different. You can't say, yeah, it's 12 inches and then fall off a cliff when you hit the sidewalk, right? It has to be harmonized. So there's a second part of this. Each one of those streets needs to be looked at carefully. Some can come up 2 inches, some can come up 6 inches, and then you can make a better decision on whether something's worth it or not. Right? And of course, those are already pretty much complete, so you're picking up bricks and you're storing things, and so it's a little more expensive, but it's something that needs to be done. Remember, you don't put in larger and larger pump stations in the future when the whole area is okay with the pump station size you have, just to get this 50 to 100 feet dip and make the level of service meet there. So you do normally put in street raising anywhere else in the city. The only difference is there when we're putting in pipes in those streets, we're coming in, we're tearing up the whole street, so it's just the cost of that little bit of fill. This is obviously a lot more harmonization and things. So the street raising is something that should eventually happen. You do have some time. You can start with the lowest ones, but remember there's the second study. If it's the lowest one and it only comes up an inch or two, is it still worth it to spend that kind of money? So that would be the second part of that to make that decision. And then talk about the future pump stations. Remember this area, we showed you last time we were here, 2 pump stations from FDOT, works fairly well. You fill in those 2 gaps, it works very well. Well, it's the same thing out here. If you say, well, let's put in a pump station, we have enough money to put in one out here, and you need 6 or 7, whatever the number was we saw there, is that really something, sometimes we refer to it as stranded infrastructure. Something has to go in. If you were given a grant, you jump on it and say, yes, this is something we need to do, it's getting funded, put it in now. But you don't want to spend a lot of your money on something that's going to work in the future and right now only work at certain times, because sometimes the perception of that is you spent a lot of money, and until you have a plan for the rest of it, you may not want to put something in and spend all your money on that. So that's basically part of that discussion of what we need to, kind of figure out today together on the conclusions there. So the next steps would be to kind of finalize that decision on the redundant backflow preventers, and then finalize decision on which streets you want to do, if you want to raise those streets or if the money's better spent somewhere else. And then confirm that those backflow preventers are definitely going in on any street that you don't raise, and make those kind of a priority.
Yeah. So Jonathan, given the relative inexpensive cost of the backflow preventers, we can install lots of them for an average of, say, $40,000. It's my impression that we would install them, observe conditions, and from there decide on the pace and the funding of raising the streets, knowing that the benefits of raising the streets are as you described. If you raise it 12 inches, then you've gained, even if water rises 12 inches, it's still going to stay under the surface because it's
Right.
The street is 12 inches higher. So in a nutshell, while we look ahead toward raising streets and eventually pumps and continuing to pursue funding, obviously the backflow preventers are number one to help relieve the situation, right?
That's correct.
Right. So I think it's pretty clear for us what we, the direction we need to give staff to get this best bang for the buck on the backflow preventers and the Way Pros. We've already installed a number of them, and these would be installed basically right at the structure at the end of these east-west streets and US 1.
That's correct.
And so we're not going into the intracoastal and doing it from that side, so it's a lot less expensive and actually more serviceable, and actually helps to
Pipes are smaller.
avoid the inflow issues that might be under A1A to the outfall.
Right.
So lots of good things here. Happy that we're here, and I just want to commend our CRA and Public Utilities and yourself, because we did this analysis in-house. We didn't hire a consultant to tell us what Sarita just told us, and thank you for using the tools and the expertise we already have on hand to get us to be able to say go. I have obviously board members who want to speak. We have Bob Glickman who wanted to speak, and so board members, did you want to ask questions to staff now, or you want me to have Bob go ahead first? All right, Bob, come on up. Then we've got board members Hernandez.
I was just
and-
informed there's one more slide. Sorry.
Okay.
The rubric again. All right, so this is the same that we've seen before. It's just the rubric on the Hollywood's initiatives. So the backflow preventers are up there with the costs, the stormwater pump stations working with FDOT, and the street profiles where we're going to do the additional study to see how high each one can go. And the bottom part of there is just the coordination with FDOT. I know we're meeting with them next month, in a couple of weeks, so we can take those bottom ones and talk to them about accelerating funding for the rest of those.
Thank you. Bob, come on up. If anyone would like to speak on this topic, see the clerk, provide them with a comment card, and we'll go ahead and call you up. Bob Glickman?
Good morning again, Bob Glickman. So let's go back to the original premise. Flap gates, flap gates, flap gates. We need to step on FDOT to fix the flap gates and the underground piping. Okay, this is the original cause. We're trying to put Band-Aids on things, and I appreciate that, and we're moving in the right direction, but we need to keep on top of FDOT to get this thing done. The other thing is I had sent an email, I don't know if anybody had seen it yesterday, but I have a concern, and I spoke to Susan this morning about it, about there's curbing around some of the street basins on the side streets. Okay, this is holding water in, okay? I understand her explanation to me, but I'm going to explain it to you in a different way. When you have surrounds like this and a dip in the street, the water is just sitting there. There's no way for it to evacuate. On some of the streets, there are no surrounds on the street basins. They're level with the street, and the street and the water runs off to A1A. okay? On some streets, and I'll pick one out for you, Carolina Street, where they have a surround on one side of the street and nothing on the other side of the street, there's no water at that street end either. The only reason I know that is I live there, and for us to get in and out of our building, we have to find streets that have no water in them, because we can't take a car through 6, 8 inches of water. We flood out. So we find streets that we're able to do that. New Hampshire and New Mexico are streets. I sent a picture of New Mexico Street with no surrounds, and the water just evacuates onto A1A. At Carolina Street, same thing happens. At our streets, they're blocked in, and there's a lot of streets that where they have the surround, the curbing on the surrounds at 8 inches, and it just sits there, and there's no way for it to pass until it evaporates. So I just want to bring this to your attention. Possibly this is a solution. If you remove the surrounds on one side of the street, we can get some of the water out of the dips, and you don't have to spend $6 million to raise the strips. Just a suggestion to you. Okay, but the thing that concerns me the most is that we need to stay on top of FDOT. They need to fix the flap gates in Intercoastal. They need to raise the profiles. They just need to do this stuff. It seems like other cities, they have a contractor that comes in there, once a year and takes care of all of this stuff. We have broken pipes, and they're just not fixing it here in Hollywood. I don't know what their problem seems to be, but we just somehow need to get them more involved and down here so they can take care of the problem. Instead of us spending the money, it's their obligation. So let them do it. I mean, we just need to get them to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Well, as you know, we have the secretary coming in next week. We'll have next month. We'll have a robust discussion. But right now, we want to take our own destiny in our own hands and have a very cost-effective implementation of these backflow preventers. That is, bar none, the first thing you ought to do when you have backflow of tidal water, especially where we don't want the years that it would take for an FDOT, repair and improvement. And to just stand by and have the same conditions continue when backflow preventers can significantly reduce, if not eliminate, the high tide issues on the Central Beach. I think there's no doubt that we need to be doing this, and it's cost effective. So let's go to board members. Board Member Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. Great presentations, Farida. Bob, thank you for your concern. And I'm going to address your concern first. If you take the curbing around the catch basins, now you're dispersing the water into private property, which has basically become detrimental reliance. And that is exactly the same thing that would happen if we raised the streets. So by eliminating the curbing around there, we're basically saving, as he said, $6.4 million, because that's exactly what the street raising is going to do, is going to disperse that water. It isn't going to make the water go away. It's just going to disperse it into private property, into the low-lying buildings that may be next door. So we may be fixing one problem, and we're creating others. And my question and Sarita's shaking her head, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but nonetheless, the question that I have, as a CRA, we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to redoing the street ends. This should have been addressed at that time as a comprehensive approach. But I agree with you, Mayor, that the $1.3 million to fix those backflow preventers, it's a no-brainer. That should be done, and if it needs to be done at our expense, it should be done at our expense. However, I caution you, if you go back to page 3, if somebody can go back to page 3. Anybody has a clicker that can go back to page 3 of Sarita's presentation? Oh, you passed it. 3, one more, right there. Okay, the cost of the $21.3 million, even though that may be budgeted by us, that should only be spent after we have an agreement with the DOT. Because otherwise, if we don't have an agreement, that's going to be money that's coming out of our taxpayers' money, and it's not going to be refunded. The same way that we have agreements with the FDOT for the other 2 pumps that are under construction, we should have an agreement with this. And I spoke with Susan yesterday about it, and she's in full agreement of that. Before we spend the money, we can let them know that we fully prepared to move forward with it. If they sign an interlocal agreement, that we will refund it, and maybe we can talk about whether they can pay us back in 5 years or not, but for that money to come back in order for us to continue to have purposes of work that needs to be done on the beach. Just because the CRA goes away, that doesn't mean that the need goes away. So that this way we have $21 million or part thereof in order for us to be able to get that money back. So that's a concern that I have, and I would ask that the directive would be, we'd be ready to move forward with this after the DOT signs an agreement, they will refund us for this. Because overall, this is their road. A1A is their road. And some of the faults that we've been finding out, even that we're paying for the studies, it points to them of not maintaining the road properly. Page 7, if I may. Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
Seven. There you go, perfect. These are the pumps that are needed, and these are the pumps that we're looking for. It goes back to the $21.3 million that we're talking about. It's a comprehensive approach to make sure that everything else works accordingly, because right now we have deficiencies in certain places. So it would be the equivalent of you going through a nice smooth road, and then all of a sudden you go through bumpy roads or flooded roads in this case, and then go back to the other. It doesn't make for a synchronized project, and that's what we look forward. So, and the fact that they don't have to budget this right now, and it could be in their 5-year budget alignment, it should go a long way with them to be able to move forward and sign an agreement with them. And if you go to page 13, I only have 2 more. Okay. This goes back to the same thing, raising of the street, $6.4 million. We paid already to redo those streets. I'm surprised that at that time that was not addressed, or maybe it was looked at, and the reason they didn't do it was because we were going to be flooding the properties, the adjacent properties, and that's a concern that I have. I don't know if Sarita.
What year was that, Susan, when the Central Beach streets were redone, roughly?
Central Beach streets started in 2006 when we did the Garfield Street parking garage, and the last project was let out in 2015.
And to Board Member Hernandez's point, was tidal flooding really something that was heavily looked at 20 years ago? Was it, obviously you looked at profiles because you were reconstructing a street, but what were conditions then, if you could recall, since you were an institution here?
Okay, I'll take that. Back in actually 2002, when the whole design of the streets and the Garfield Street parking garage became underway, I'm going to be honest with you, we were never, the sea level rise and tidal flooding was not even mentioned as a priority. And even at the beginning, all of our projects were coordinated with public utilities and public works. Those topics never came up. So we were directed to meet the profile on A1A, do the undergrounding of overhead utilities. Obviously, if we found any broken pipes in the streets when we were constructing, to repair those. But there wasn't a directive or a direction to raise the streets nor look at harmonizing. When we started planning Phase 4, fast forward, almost 20 years, it became, apparent that was really an important thing to do, which is why in the Phase 4, the 18 streets we're doing now, we're doing harmonizing, which is complicated, as you mentioned. We have to sometimes come close to, on private property, and there's driveways and stairs and all of that, as well as the construction of the raising of the street.
Yeah, and I appreciate the point, the fact that 20 years ago was different than it was 10 years ago, because when we finished in 2015 on the Central Beach, we changed our model of moving forward and to address all of those issues. The point is, the streets have been redundant, 20 years old. There is time for us to go back to do it, but the quick answer is, if we take the curbs out of there, we're going to be displacing the water much the same as if we raise the street, and it's a fraction of the cost.
Yeah,
So that may be a consideration to give the directive to staff to look into something like that, because that'll be a prelude of what's going to happen once we raise the street. How are we going to affect those private properties? And this
Have to be
way,
addressed then too.
and this way it could be addressed at that point. And here's the
We
engineer.
can address that. So we're, obviously, I'm not designing the road, but what you do, you're sloping it towards new catch basins. You don't raise it without putting in new infrastructure. However, remember the part that we said, the second step, the harmonization? You can't raise a road if you're flooding private property. So some streets may not come up, and that's part of that discussion.
And therefore, if we take the curbing away from those catch basins, number one, it allow more water to come into the catch basin from the area that it's curbed in, but it also allows for that water to be displaced naturally.
During storms,
During
yes.
storm, okay.
During high tide, it's not. gonna
During
do
high
it.
tide, we need to be able to have the backflow preventer, which I think that's a no-brainer. We should
And
move
again,
forward.
I didn't design those roads. There may be a valid reason why that was done that way. So I can't really speak to that design, but I'm hearing what's happening and what.
No, I think the point is, number one, we shouldn't spend money that we be able to get an agreement for, bless you, that we should be able to get an agreement with FDOT because we're helping their road. Number two, before we actually spend the money and look at unintended consequences with raising the roads, I think Bob Glickman has a good point where we take the curbing around it off, see what kind of effects that has, and then we look and we go from there. The good thing about all of this is we have budgeted these things and we have the ability to pay for these things when and if the DOT signs the agreement that it's going to reimburse us for it. So we'll be able to move forward with that. So I think this is all good. Page 17 is the only other note that I have, if we can go to that page.
Fast forward 4.
And it all comes down to money. The $21.3 million is what we have budgeted. It's what it's needed to get the repairs on the 2 pumps and everything else that needs to be done. We just need an agreement with FDOT, and hopefully we can ask the director when he comes out, see if we can get that agreement sooner than later so we can move forward with this. I think it was a great presentation. I think that some of these issues that we're having, it's not being addressed with this presentation because it goes from A1A to the intercoastal, which is the part that we gotta get the DOT to actually come up and work on their easements and maintain their pipe, because that's where the leakage is coming. Otherwise, we can do all of this, and if the infiltration still take place, we're still gonna have flooding on A1A. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hernandez. Let's go to Board Member Shuham.
Thank you. Sarita, great job. The visuals are excellent. Totally understand what you were saying. Jonathan, I have a question for you. Well, first of all, when we are raising roads now in Phase 4, you can't just dump the water on the private property, right? Can you explain what happens?
That's exactly what the harmonization is.
Right.
We have to look at the elevations of everybody's property. Sometimes, let's say there's an asphalt private parking lot. Sometimes what we have to do is go in 10, 15 feet on the private property and make sure that there's a gradual slope where it meets the sidewalk. So we have temporary construction easements on private property, which, was quite an effort.
Such a coordination
Sarita's
effort.
still chasing some private properties because people get nervous, you're coming onto my private property. Now, the idea is sometimes it's easy, there's a landscape area there. That's kind of a little bit easier, but sometimes there's a staircase. And some of these buildings were built back in the 40s and 50s. The staircase spills out right onto, so each street is an individual design, each property is an individual design. But the design that has been done in Phase 4 is actually so that each private property has a gradual segue to the sidewalk, which is gradually, again, sloped to the street.
And if we were to continue to raise streets, we would have to do the exact same thing on these other roads, correct?
Yes, and as Mr. Goldman just said, not every street could be raised the same amount because you are dealing with the private property. How much can you actually do? Some streets can only be raised maybe 2 inches, maybe 3 inches. Some streets maybe 6 inches. Again, we did this analysis in-house for the 6 lowest streets, both a visual observation as well as looking at surveys that we had, in order to do a complete exhaustive analysis, we really would have to get, drawings done and do a full analysis.
Okay. And with respect to the additional pumps that the CRA is trying to move forward on, it was my understanding that you have been working with FDOT on this funding question.
We have been requesting that, but we don't have we don't have
No,
IMA
nothing
or
signed yet.
reimbursement. I think
Yeah, so that's on our list of things for, but it's not new. I mean, they know this is coming from us.
correct.
Okay. Jonathan, a couple questions. If you look, and I don't know the slide number, but when we look at Arizona Street in the profile,
Do it from here, or the profile?
yeah, like that's fine. For just Arizona is just one of the example. Any of the low streets, they are higher at A1A, and then they dip way down, and then of course they come way up at Surf. Is that dip like a subsidence issue? Is that what happened? I mean, I don't think the street was designed this way, right? It was probably a straight slope.
And over time, I mean, the city streets start up on the sand ridge, right? And then they come down, and then, of course, A1A being the major evacuation route, over time has to raise, so it causes that little bit of a dip. And, you know, in a perfect world, you'd be harmonizing as A1A came up over time.
So one question I have, and I don't know if it's for you or for street engineers, is when we do this going forward, because, you know, I think that we'll delay it as best we can with all these valves and everything, but at some point, we're going to have to do more of these streets. I'm just curious, are there any new products or new ideas that people are having in light of the, you know, the frequency of cities seeing this issue to when you go in now and fix this 50-year-old issue, is there any new way to do it so that you don't have this subsidence?
And there are geogrids and other things that stabilize soil underneath, but remember, the street is in areas eroding from the change in the tide underneath, but it's not causing that dip is literally the profile of the two roads that come together, and that's a common problem up and down large roads like that have city streets. You see it all along Dixie, you see it all along Federal right here. A lot of the stormwater master plan is putting exfiltration trenches on either side of that because US 1 is so high, and those areas catch, it's in your district there, so that whole area is getting new stormwater infrastructure. We're not recommending raising the roads there because you can exfiltrate there. On the beach, it's a different story. The water
Right,
table is
right.
too high. Yeah.
Okay. And then I just wanted to understand something you had said about the head loss from Surf down to A1A. If you raise the streets, are you talking about the explain that to me.
Yeah, so it had come up before, well, if you put a second backflow preventer in there, then it takes a little bit of pressure to open up. Isn't that going to cause a little bit of problem with, additional stages there? But you have so much driving head coming up from Surf because it's higher. You're in a good position to where you'll have enough to open that second backflow.
Okay, all right.
Shouldn't be a problem, yeah.
I mean, it looks like it from
Yeah.
this profile.
Doesn't take much to open the small ones.
And then, I certainly agree with the approach here. I guess my one question I had was, there was a slide, the second to the last slide, I think 16 or 17, that had, this. No, not this one. Yeah, this. What's the difference? I'm just curious, what is the difference between 1 and 3? Am I missing something here?
So if there was a decision that the backflow preventers were not going in every street for cost or whatever the reason, then any street that you're not raising, you want to make sure that you
Gotcha.
put the backflow, because it's not one or the other, it's treating the symptom rather than the cause. But if it's impossible to do it in one spot, the backflow preventer is your second
Okay.
choice, right? So if for any reason some of the backflows don't go in, prioritize the ones where you're not raising streets.
Okay. And then, for me, I think the only comment I would have is that in between these various projects, that we pause and see what the impact is. This is science to a certain degree, but also nature is playing a role. And we also know that the situation with Mother Nature gets worse every day. So I would just ask if we move forward with some of these larger projects, street raising and things like that, that we are certain that we're taking into account projections that we are getting from the county, because it's to design for current conditions is to throw money away. It's getting worse every day. But generally, my comment is I agree that we do the quickest, cheapest thing, but then I would like to take a bit of a pause and see, what is the impact of that additional work. So, but again, thank you, Jonathan, for
And
being here.
keep in mind, the backflow prevention is only for the sunny day, high tide, and the sea level rise.
That's
You
true.
still have a stormwater problem collecting at all the dips. And that requires, FDOT said it themselves, that requires a pump station. They're beyond the gravity system at this point.
Got it. And, obviously, we definitely need the secretary here. I mean, so much of this is out of our control.
Right.
And we can't be the funder of FDOT. So, thanks so much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Let's go to Board Member Kaleri, Vice Chair Kaleri.
Hi, thank you.
I'll get that right by the end of the year.
By the end of the year, it'll be perfect. Just a couple questions. One, everything that everyone said, like coordination with FDOT is so important. I know we've been reaching out to them. We've talked about it. That is priority. As far as the curb that Bob had mentioned, I don't know if this would help, but just even we've seen it in other areas where they take the curb and they cut out like a little dip so it allows the water to go in. So that way you don't have to take out the whole curbing. It provides that aesthetic appeal, but it also gives an opportunity for the flow of the water to go. And I think that that would be an easy fix. I don't know. Again, I'm not an engineer or anything, but just thinking common sense. If we could go back to slide 11, and this may seem like a crazy question, but I do want to just better understand this if possible. Sorry. And you're the perfect person to ask.
Going to where?
11? Okay. So when we're talking about, I know you said we're talking about high tide, king tides. We're not talking about stormwater. But what the layperson sees, such as myself, driving down A1A, and I'm assuming that this further end is Surf Road, correct? Like the 340
The
mark?
far right, yeah.
And then the lower part is right along A1A, pretty much where you see the roads are flooded. Am I correct on
Yes.
that? Okay. So what we're talking about currently is king tides, right, and sea level rise. So if this orange part on the over where it says Tyler Street, that orange one, let's just take the orange line. The water flows down into the lowest part, correct?
Right.
Okay. So the homes, or I guess the homes that are on that, are they lower as well?
I don't have that information, but I assume they're
Sarita?
pretty much in line with
The street?
there.
So if you were to raise the street, I guess this is my question, if you're going to raise the street to help prevent that blockage of water from collecting in that area down here past New Mexico Street, right? Just I'm giving pinpoints. I mean, that's a lot of money and it's a lot of work. And help me, this may seem like a very bizarre question, but in other areas, such as, let's say, Tallahassee, they have the cauldrons, I guess you call them, or latrines, and then they have a metal mesh that goes over the top so that the water collects, but you still can get your car through and you're not flooding. Would that be something that would be more, I guess, less burdensome on the impact of the areas, but also allow for you to get through and create that opportunity?
Yeah, so what you're describing is technically called a trench drain.
Or a great, yeah.
Right? So the answer is yes, that can help if you're going to start raising roads, but remember, you're losing the storage where the water used to be in that road, and you can't put it on people's properties, which is why the harmonization comes in. You're going off the property and you're sloping them up too. You're channeling this stuff down towards where your catch basins are.
Right, but
But-
as far as cost efficient, right? Like you think about it, it's not, the water's not there all the time. So we're spending millions of dollars to put in the pump stations to help retrieve the water. But we're also gonna spend a lot of money to put pavement that we don't know if it's a fix or guarantee, if the flap gates are gonna, like all of this is a hypothetical, I feel. Yes, it's proven certain areas work, maybe not, but cost-wise and just food for thought, if there is that opportunity to not raise and put into the just put a grate there, a metal grate of some sort, where the water's still gonna collect there. Eventually, it's gonna be reabsorbed. Maybe the pump stations work. Is that more cost efficient as a trial to see if it works? Because our main concern is actual getting people to get out, not their cars not being flooded. So harmonization type of thing. I don't know what do you think?
Right, so just keep in mind, the trench would be full of water at high tide.
Correct.
So, and yes, it would help, but again, then it comes down the land surface towards the catch basins. It flows overland. And yes, you can put more infrastructure, you can put regular catch basins. When they come in, you usually, when you do any road raising, you tilt the streets towards the catch basins as best you can. You can put those channel gutters on the side. There's a lot of things that can be done to direct water. Right, so each street has to be looked at individually. But yeah, I mean, you can look at all sorts of different collections.
I mean, I'm just looking at
ideas while
what's
you're
most
doing it.
cost effective because as Commissioner Shuham said, it's constantly changing. The environment, has its way. You're living on an area that's surrounded by water. This isn't something that just happened yesterday. This has been going on for years. That's why we're trying to address it. But if there is a more cost effective, I mean, I don't think we're ever going to be able to get rid of all of the water, right? So if there is an opportunity and just common sense, you put a bridge. That's all I'm thinking. And if there's an opportunity where we could look into it, maybe it's more cost effective and maybe it is an opportunity for immediate relief, but also help with the planning of the future. That's just my question. But that to me is a better way. Maybe it's more cost effective for harmonization until we can get to the point of putting the pump stations, putting the flap gates, putting in all of these backflows, like everything that's needed, which is years. This is years. I'm talking about instant gratification, making sure we get people to A and B, prevent them from the flooding, and maybe that would help. Just food for thought. That's all I have. Thank you.
I think it would be helpful, Susan, if you guys talked about the timeline for the Waypros. It's pretty quick, right? What would be the outlook? We say go today, it comes back to us for an authorization, so go play it out.
We can bring the reso for April.
Right.
We already have the cost estimate, the piggyback on the public utilities contract. We can bring that to the April CRA board meeting.
And hopefully be already installing before the next fall King Tide season.
Absolutely. They have to procure, if they
Right.
can get the materials quickly, yes, we would work with the contractor to accelerate as much as possible,
Yeah.
but we can bring it as quickly as April for your consideration.
Okay, and as the commissioners have said, obviously, step two, and still needs a little bit of study, is discussion about raising profiles, but in the meantime, the Waypros are the immediate thing that we ought to be doing. Yep.
That was CDM Smith's recommendation.
Yeah. I just want to put it out there. Board Member Biederman.
So we have 14 months left, 15 months left at best, right? Is there funding for this budget item? I mean, that's going to cover some of these costs, or is this going to eventually fall on the general fund?
Which component?
Which, just in general, what we're talking about today, the raising of the streets, the Waypros, everything else that we're talking about today.
So we have funding for the Waypros. Funding at the fiscal year 2026 budget was for the 2 pumps. We don't have them under construction yet, but there's funding approved from the fiscal year 2026 budget. We do not have funding approved for street profile raisings in Central Beach.
Okay. So one of the things that I've talked about before when we were talking about raising the streets in South Beach was creating the water storage underneath the streets. So if we dig up some of the streets, and we don't have to dig them all up, dig up some of the streets, put in storm tanks or rain tanks underneath this street, and then the rock and the pavers, because those side streets aren't asphalt, so it's pervious pavers. But then the other thing I talked about is trying to get easements along some of the properties and creating some swales that will help drain some of that off. And if we have an easement, then we we could shed some of our water onto some of those side houses. And I think what we're dealing with here is just a highlight of why we need more redevelopment along certain areas of the beach, so that when they redevelop, they're creating more water storage as part of any permitting. So it's even more important to encourage some redevelopment and modernization and raising some floor elevations, so that we're building for the future and not building for the past.
Thank you, Board Member Biederman. Let's have some comments by Board Member Quintana, and then hopefully we can wrap up the direction, which we have already enunciated. Board Member Quintana.
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely, the WAPRO valves, it's a great short-term response. I kind of see it a little bit as a Band-Aid that we have to put on. We have no choice. I'm really confused about the idea of underground storage there, because I don't know. It seems like that. Where would water go underneath when it's already so close to the surface? I'm just.
You'd have to basically build an underground tank, for lack of a better word. Like a trench and a tank that, that'll
And it
be
wouldn't
like a
just
big bathtub.
kind of like the issue we're facing citywide with septic tanks. It wouldn't just kind of be floating in water if we put I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but I'm.
I mean, whether it would need pilings to stay put or not is a whole other story, but I don't think we need to dissect the whole issue of how do we construct underground storage there.
So that type of tank would have to be watertight. You would raise up a parking lot, and it would be designed to hold its own stormwater, but you'd need many, many, many of them. And then during dry weather, you would have to pump it out because it would be full all the time.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
So it's just a separate
I mean,
system.
we're kind of fortunate that we have the outfalls here where we can, go with the water. The problem is that the outfalls are backflowing, and so the WAPROs will solve that. And then, as conditions are observed to the points that everyone was making about whether, groundwater is seeping from under the ground, other areas and things like that, that would require, additional, review and addressing it, when and if we see that. But
All right, and then I just, to Commissioner Biederman's point about how we build for the future. So back in I'm going to age myself, 79, when I was graduating from high school, we knew about sea level rise and climate change. It was kind of when I first heard about it. We certainly didn't have the level of data and specificity that we have now, where we can really project what's going to happen in the future. And I keep saying it, and I'll say it again, I'm so excited about some of the young people who have come into our city's planning department, and we have some excellent people in our engineering department with PUD. But I still am kind of not seeing the integration of all the information that we have about what the projections are and what our day-to-day operations and decision-making are. So 20 years ago, we didn't know just how bad it would be now. But when we make decisions now, and we sometimes will say things, oh yeah, Idelma, but that's not for decades. That's not gonna happen for a while. We can just kind of keep doing what we're doing because that's gonna not be now. I'm afraid that 20 years from now, that people will be looking back at the decisions we're making and saying they should have been, and knowing what's coming in 20 years, we should really be designing and planning for what we know is going to come. And so I just want us to, I keep saying, has anybody seen what the projections are? Has anybody seen what it looks like at this address in 20 years? We know. So I just want to encourage us to use the data that we know as we plan for our future development. Thank you.
thank you. I'll just have to put it on the record that the forward-looking 20 years forward aspect of what we're talking about is the pump stations. We inherit today and for the past 100 years the elevation of the outfall pipes as they were constructed by FDOT many, many years ago. And yes, the tides are backflowing, and the only thing we oughta and need to do is stop the man-made problem here, not nature, but man-made problem of having a stormwater system that has a low elevation that doesn't conform to, yes, nature's higher tides. So
Totally agree,
we're-
Mayor. I'm just saying.
We're doing the right thing is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. I'm just saying more globally, not just about this particular decision, but just more globally for us to use what we know as we plan for the future.
All right, so Executive Director, I think we have our direction on the way forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on that last comment, I just want to say globally, we do appreciate that thought and that concern. It may not always be evident or apparent, but if you remember a couple of years ago, we added a chief resiliency officer position in this city. Well, and we are, and that's just like the time and the data has seen that kind of impact and realization grow. Those kind of correlations are being done increasingly on a daily basis as we go forward. So I assure you, I mean, for instance, now, one of the most important things we look at whenever we have an opportunity with open space or redesign is for water retention. That was not the case a few years ago. So that all those things are happening and changing over time and going in the right direction, but there's a lot of catch up. Yep.
All right, thank you all. We're going to shift gears now for everybody who's here at the meeting. We're going to shift gears to a presentation and talk about our downtown CRA district and the retail recruitment strategy that we're putting in. If you might have been paying attention to our CRA board meetings, we've obviously pointed out a priority for us to fill a space downtown. We've got a lot of existing ground level retail, office, commercial space. And we want to see it filled. We want to see it thriving. And so, Joanne, we've put you to the task, and you're providing us here with a multifaceted strategy to get there. And so, thank you, and thank you to the CMED team that I see here in the audience. Let's talk about it.
Sure, Mayor. Thank you. Joanne Hussey, Director of Communications, Marketing, and Economic Development. Just a disclaimer, I'm a tiny bit under the weather, so just not my usual bright, shining light that I am for the city of Hollywood. So, as the mayor said, today I'm presenting an overview of the work underway in downtown Hollywood for our retail recruitment strategy. It was not that long ago, as you remember, that the responsibility for retail recruitment fell to the CMED staff. And so now that that transition has taken place, CMED has developed a strategy to capitalize on the next phase of economic revitalization that is happening downtown. Over the past several months, new ground floor retail space has come online that needs to be filled, as the mayor mentioned. And there are new residents and customers that are moving in who we have the opportunity right now to capture. Before we look at the retail performance, it's helpful to start with the residential growth that is happening in the area. Downtown continues to grow, with more mixed-use properties recently opened or coming online soon. These developments are increasing activity and expanding the customer base for businesses in the district. Across the wider trade area, there are more than 39,000 households. Mayor, this reinforces what you've said for years, that even if a small share of these households visited downtown regularly, they could strongly support our retail, service, dining, and entertainment businesses. Here's a look at the current residential lease-up. I'm not going to go over all of them, but right now, Hollywood Heights is over 90% leased. 9 Hollywood is approaching 90%, et cetera. You can kind of see on the screen. These numbers tell you that there is healthy absorption happening across multiple projects here in the city. Established buildings are being stabilized. Newer buildings are leasing steadily, albeit with rent concessions, an important note to say. But these newest projects are following an expanded and typical lease-up curve. Downtown's residential vacancy is reflected of the timing of these deliveries. A lot of supply is hitting the market at the same time. So it's not indicative of weakening demand, it's just there's more options. These units are being absorbed, and it is continuing to strengthen our potential customer base. That residential growth is beginning to produce as new units are absorbed and the customer base strengthens. We're seeing some ground floor activation that's following. At the Tropic, Bagel and Company is coming soon, adding a strong daytime anchor that serves both residents and office workers. Baram Thai Street Food has brought a vibrant, authentic concept to Hollywood Boulevard, which is continuing to contribute to our growth mix of independent, experience-driven dining. Garden of Soul on Harrison expands our culinary diversity and reinforces downtown as a place where locally owned concepts can thrive. Vanilla Cafe, I believe most of you were at the grand opening. It is quickly becoming a destination for those specialty coffee and desserts. And it's a place where it's activating on the park adjacent to Arts Park. And when you need a place to work off those coffees and desserts, established locations like CKO Kickboxing are growing.
I mean, after you energize the coffee and dessert.
Right. So they're attracting a whole new clientele as well. These businesses are reflecting these early stages of our residential density, and they're converting our retail performance. This is a progression that we want to see continue, along with the investment and the absorption now that these spaces are activated. These are our new buildings and the influx of residents. These residents didn't appear overnight. As you know, planning for this time happened more than 20 years ago, as Mayor, you were just talking about, and Commissioner Quintana. Since the board approved in the CRA, the city has been making steady improvements in the downtown environment while also working with our property owners and our businesses. Zoning changes, underground infrastructure, and updated streetscapes have supported this mixed-use development and responded to longstanding requests from the business community. These investments reinforce the existing foundation and have helped to shape the conditions that we are seeing downtown. Now we're focused on helping these property owners fill these spaces, increasing foot traffic, and helping to seek new retail experiences. Overall, this reflects the expanded evolution of our maturing, full-service downtown. So as we wrap up a busy centennial year, which I hope nobody has forgotten so soon because it was very busy for the team, CMed was also, we had already started putting into motion an action plan for downtown. The plan, as you see on the screen, is broken out and organized around 6 focus areas: data and marketing, intelligence, technology and digital tools, campaign and content creation, regulatory improvements, consultant engagement, and of course, business and property owner support. Elements for these components are happening simultaneously. It's not just one and then we move on to the other. We're working to strengthen both the customer attraction and tenant recruitment at the same time. So what are some of these tasks and initiatives and elements that are a part of the plan? You may be wondering. Our plan includes data-driven retail targeting. We're using technology and AI while also enhancing our direct outreach, our strategic marketing efforts to increase foot traffic. We're reviewing our rules and regulations, our policies, and our procedures, including efforts to make the certificate of use and building permit process with development services more efficient and predictable. For example, additionally, this fiscal year, we launched our quarterly market vitality report to share with the community the facts of our downtown. We also wanted to establish a baseline. This was really important for us. The Q2 data was recently shared with you, and it is posted to the city's website for all to see. The data shows ground floor occupancy currently stands at about 77% in downtown, which is in line with similar downtown areas throughout South Florida. And I'm stressing downtown areas. While we also launched Placer AI technology that has helped us to set a baseline for foot traffic in the downtown, it's showing roughly 156,000 unique visitors are in our downtown each month. They are not driving through. This is grabbing them that they are here for at least 10 minutes. This baseline metric is going to help us better understand our activation patterns in peak periods. We're also sharing this with interested business owners who are looking to grow their business downtown. The CMed team is also completing a comprehensive downtown business inventory, which points of contact and hours of operations, business URLs, property owner information, all of this information that's kind of out there in multiple places. We're gathering it into one spot so we can ensure that our marketing and recruitment efforts are aligned with what's actually happening out there for real world conditions. On the advertising front, in our promotional efforts, we're structured around the two complementary tracks that I mentioned. First, customer attraction and destination marketing. This includes storytelling through video, which we saw success with our On the 7 campaign about a year and a half ago with telling the story of the corridor. But it also includes event and lifestyle promotion, a dedicated Visit Downtown webpage. The CRA's website is going to be incorporated into the city's website as part of our redesign. It also includes a live geofencing campaign to help raise awareness and increase foot traffic. Geofencing is where we serve ads to a cell phone, and just in case anybody's wondering what that plan is going to be. On the tenant recruitment track, we have targeted digital outreach campaign that's running in the state of Florida. We've created broker-facing materials that we're distributing on our FAM tours. We have an upcoming South Florida Business Journal market review and realtor panels, and we have vacancy promotion that is currently underway. We're advertising both in print and digital and multiple publications and organizations like The Real Deal, Florida Trend, etc. Ads are also placed, and they are currently live, that are both reinforcing our audience and working to grow our retailers. This is a conceptual. We're working to finalize the artwork for vacant properties. So when you go downtown, the spaces that are not leased right now, there's either artwork or per code, the window is open and the lights are on. So we are working on a updated window covering program. And you can kind of see the approach that we are going to be taking is not just to showcase some custom art that speaks to the Hollywood experience, but it's also going to include information for leasing and for contacting us. Brand treatments for these vacant storefronts will help to reduce the perception of inactivity, and it will signal that our downtown is active, investable, and artistic. This is an example. At the direction of future city manager Story, our very talented graphic designer and economic development marketing coordinator, Vicki Nelson, and our architect and principal planner, Nicole Moyo. They have collaborated and merged their artistic talents to create new downtown coverings with their original artwork. These covers also include, as I mentioned, messaging and QR code that direct to leasing agents and the city's website. Here's just a couple of examples for what they could look like. On the regulatory front, we've heard the need to speed up these processes to help businesses get from application process to opening. To that end, Development Services have another number of irons in the fire to help address, including the launch of the final phase of Acela, and to streamline, that will help to streamline the processing and speed approvals. The CMed team has also stepped up to help answer certificate of use calls that come into planning, and an RFP for a citywide call center continues to make its way through the competitive bid process that CMed is a part of. We're reviewing our existing code, zoning, and land use for quick wins and to remove growth barriers. CMed's also working with our building fund folks to review open building permits that have stalled. Jim and Vanetta have been amazing helping us with that. The CMed team will be meeting with the building staff on a regular basis to help push these tenants over the goal line to get their projects done. And CMed will be bringing forward next month a reworked citywide property improvement program that combines the CRA district and city programs into a more agile, comprehensive program with levels of funding and participation that, more importantly, will streamline the process for faster results. A few of the other things that we're addressing in that streamlined program will be potentially to require only one quote at that time and some insurance adjustments based on the project scope and streamlined approvals. And of course, if I always say, you can't do it without the help from the community, certainly. We're strengthening our on-the-ground engagement by having a presence at the Coffee with the Crew, the downtown property owners, and DHBA meetings. We've been meeting with individual business owners, and we continue to provide support for the business community, including our monthly Small Business Assistance Center that is here at City Hall. We're also coordinating our door-to-door outreach to businesses, and we're going to new residential businesses to distribute a new downtown marketing piece that has or will have an incentive coupon component that encourages patronage of the local businesses. That piece will also include a QR code that points to a downtown survey. We're working to get the businesses, we were ready to go, but we have to get the businesses to offer the incentive first. So we're on the streets trying to get that to happen. And then once we have those coupons, we will be distributing this, this marketing piece. All these efforts that we're doing that I just mentioned a few here, they are bringing in leads. People are interested in moving their business and growing their business here in Hollywood. So with that, we're continuing to connect property owners and prospective tenants to the available spaces. To assist with that, as our downtown continues to grow, we recognize that the value of adding capacity to the department by partnering with the right people who have the right contacts and the right way of going about things. We've onboarded retail strategies to help us with this effort. Our focus is to connect their viable retail brand clients that they have in their Rolodex right now with our agents and property owners here in Hollywood who have the space and who want people to come and move in. This is a key component to our strategy that brings national relationships with retailers to our brokers here in Hollywood. This partnership actively identifies brands that are growth ready. And it's going to save us some time where we're not just making cold calls, which we will still continue to do, but this will kind of streamline our process. Not only that, retail strategies actually makes the introduction, which a lot of companies do not. Sorry. They help to facilitate these early discussions, and they will help to move the conversations forward towards lease and negotiations. This partnership will strengthen our ability to proactively help our downtown owners by facilitating leasing of their storefront activation. As we work our way through this year, our progress will be measured using a data set and metrics. I'm all about the facts, just the facts. It is clear performance indicators that we are established. We are including ground floor vacancy trends, foot traffic certificate of use processing timelines, and retail openings. Those are just some of the metrics that we'll be using. We're going to continue to issue our quarterly market vitality report and share with the board and community to ensure our accountability and our transparency. Our immediate next steps include our retail strategies work, completing the downtown business inventory audit, securing business partnerships for that resident special coupon that I mentioned, continuing to build our dedicated downtown website to transition the CRA site to the city's main website, hosting our first, and we'll be hosting, with the help of Retail Strategies, our first property owner roundtable and community town hall. So this concludes the presentation. Before I open up to questions, I just wanted to recognize the team, Janelle, Hugo, Richard, Vicky, and of course Herb, for their digging in over the past several months. The progress that we continue to make in this short time is really reflective of our real team effort. And we all have the shared belief of, what we're trying to help continue to happen in downtown. There's a genuine sense of excitement across downtown that I hope you've heard from some of the property owners. And we're just at the start. Our work is just beginning. It's been going on for a number of years now, so we're picking up the torch. And with your help and with the community's help, I'm certain that we can achieve these goals together. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Can we give a round of applause to the team? Because, and I think we're approaching this, I think, with confidence, given that you said, Joanne, we have a downtown that's been evolving intentionally and maturing. And it's, many years ago, the city understood, we understood in the master plan that we needed to bring in a lot more residents downtown to create a vibrant economic environment there, fill the spaces, and have that critical mass of people living there. If we fast forward to today, we have these thousands of units that you highlighted in the beginning, and they're filling, and they will be full, and they're on their way. And so, obviously now, with that inherent foot traffic in downtown, and with the outreach that we'll go forward with in accordance with your plan to welcome the broader Hollywood community and beyond to visit downtown and to discover it anew, we obviously are I always say downtown's always in a better and better place, together with the public improvements that we've made over the years. And so I know that all of us up here love downtown. We know it's special, and we want more people to discover it and more businesses to come in and thrive there. And so I know we're there. And so your strategies that you've laid out are obviously top to bottom on everything that needs to get done. If you could, just for the sake of having a slide during discussion, put up the slide that shows your 6 strategies.
Sure.
Because there's a lot that needs to happen concurrently to make the result that we wanted, to fill the space and to create the vibrancy that we want. And it's across all of these different areas that you've pointed out. So I'm excited about the execution of this, and obviously happy to be a part and looking to be a part of executing on all this to the extent us as elected officials certainly can and help in our part.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that.
So let's go to Board Member Coleri.
Thank you. So thank you for the presentation. Really exciting to see. It's sort of like that build it and they will come type of aha moment. So I think, it takes a little bit of time. There's a lot of naysayers that are like, oh, you built all these buildings downtown and no, they're all vacant, and it takes time. They really have flourished, and I'm excited to see the leased percentages, which really clarifies that. I think just 3 of the things that I know they're on your board here, but just to really point out and get your input. As far as the owners, we know that a lot of downtown buildings are old money, out of state owners, because it's like been in the family for so many years. And how are you navigating through that? I think that I have always heard has been the biggest issue with getting those spaces rented. They're so astronomical. They don't care if it gets rented or not. Where it's been a challenge. So have you made any headway with some of these owners of these buildings that have been vacant forever and a day or are charging so much money?
It is definitely a challenge. There's no doubt about it. We have been working with some of the leasing agents who are trying to also fill the space for some of these property owners. The rent is a lot, and if the building needs, $600,000 worth of work to get that business started, they are finding challenges with people are just, that's taking up all their reserves to just renovate the building. And so we are encouraging the leasing agents and the property owners to maybe you want to, look at the rent or some sort of incentives or maybe a long-term cost sharing option. Or you fix the building. You fix the building and you have it ready to go for a business to come in. I will not stand here and say that we have made any progress in actually having that done, but we continue to push. And I think they're hearing us. So it's a work in progress there.
I mean, you would think it would just only make sense that if it's vibrant and used, it only enhances their ability. But I know that it's like they don't really care because it's not an issue for them. But do we offer, and refresh my mind, I'm sorry for this, but do we offer types of grants for new businesses to come in to help with that renovation, like the PIPs and the HIPs and the HOPs and all the?
So as part of our, and I'm glad you brought that up, Vice Mayor. So as part of our citywide commercial property improvement, and I mentioned we're coming forward to the board next month with a comprehensive plan to fold in the PIP, the POP, the HOP, the mural, all of those into one program. But what that program really focuses on is exterior.
I know.
And so there is no interior grant program. Now, if the commission would like to support that again, I mean, I know we've been there, done that, but maybe it's something that we want to look at again to, have some sort of gap financing or something to help with those interior improvements. I think it's something, that warrants another consideration.
I mean, I strongly would, encourage my board members to look into that because that is what is kind of the barrier from people coming in because the cost is so exuberant, more than they could afford and starting up their business. So, I mean, maybe that is something and we can kind of get a little bit more understanding and grip on what is our percentage, what we would allow to encourage because, you have to offer that olive branch to be able to bear fruit off of it. So maybe that's something we can do. The other biggest concern that I hear is, and we've made major adjustments, but it's still food for thought, is parking. Convenience. And I think that in your presentation or when you do your outreach, really showing where that parking opportunities are at, maybe putting a map of the distant walk, because when you go to Fort Lauderdale, which seems to be super busy, or Dania Point even now they're so busy, you have to park in the parking garage. And if we could show that comparison, it's only a, 50 steps or 100-step walk from point A to point B. Well, it's only 35 steps, just kind of breaking it down to show that it's not such a challenge. I think that would be really important. And then connectivity. We have this amazing downtown park, and while we have the walkway, you always have to bring something energetic to the table. And you have to bring something that's new and fun to draw people in. And, thinking about it constantly, I don't know if there's ever an opportunity that we could venture down with new developers that are coming into the area, downtown. There's 3 more projects that are on the board. Where they're at, I don't know. But even a crosswalk bridge from the Arts Park over into the downtown, I think would be really phenomenal with artwork on it and lighting that goes over the circle aspect. So it provides that connectivity. I don't know how challenging that would be, but I definitely think that it would be a wow stopper. It would be something that would encourage people, oh, I want to go, even if it's LED lights that, are displayed over it. Something that really creates a synergy even more than we have and provides that connectivity from the arts park to the businesses in the downtown. Because people go to the arts park and then they go home. And that's a lot of what I hear. So maybe there's some way we can get something incorporated, but that's just my food. I think food for thought. I think it's amazing what we're doing. We got to do a little bit more. And I think once everyone starts moving into those buildings and starts utilizing everything that we have to offer in the downtown, it's going to be unstoppable. And then the last thing I just want to add, even if the walking is different from the parking garages to our downtown, we used to have the trolley. We have the Sun Shuttle, but maybe there is something that we can bring back into the downtown that would actually promote and bring our business, the individuals who are coming to our downtown, so they feel safe to get from point A to point B, just like a kind of transportation shuttle of some sort. And I think that, then we really create this opportunity for people to utilize our downtown to its fullest potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Vice Chair Coleri. Let's go to Board Member Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. Great presentation. And one of the things I want to go back to the percentage of rental properties that are actually filled. If we go to that screenshot, please. And I didn't write down the page.
I think it's over here.
There we go. This is great news, and it flies in the face of some of the people that are saying that the buildings are empty. They're not empty. But here's what they're not saying, and something that we need to look at. This is creating a vacuum to some of the older properties in the district and nearby the downtown, because they don't have the amenities that the new buildings do. So you have some individuals that are renting nearby actually gravitating to these properties because, number one, they're brand new. They're only a few $100s more per month because of the rent and the taxes and the insurance is going up. And so it's creating a vacuum and an opportunity for some of those other properties to be redeveloped. So one of the things that we need to talk about at the board level is, being that we're getting only $3 million for the next 5 years from the county, and being that we have incentives that we have provided to some of these developers to do this, are we looking to leverage some of those incentives that we have when they go away to continue some of the grants availability that we may create for some of those smaller properties, for them to update those properties? So this is a conversation that at some point we may need to have a talk with the CRA director and the new incoming CRA director for us to be able to have a plan to see if we can do that. In other words, some of those incentives are going to be going away, and we can still utilize that money for future development. In other words, it will be a CRA not relying on county money, but relying on our own money, but in order to continue the progress that we've started. That's number one. I also want to ask, has there been any progress for us reaching out to the county, because 21st Avenue and Dixie Highways are county roads, to see if we can two-way those roads in order to create better business opportunities for those roads and be safer roads, actually, in order the crossing of the railroads. That's something that needs to go hand in hand with what we're doing with the downtown. That's not being addressed. We need to be able, access. Access is key, because now we're intensifying. We got almost 6,000 units. We got 5,800 units into the downtown. We don't want 5,800 cars traveling back and forth over the railroads. We need to be able to keep those people within in-house, and that's something that we need to look at. So we need to see what we can do in order to get that approach. Here's one thing that there's more than one way to skin a cat, as some people would say. The existing building owners, they're not looking to make their money in rent. They're looking to make the money and the value that those properties are creating year after year because of everything that's coming around them. So for them to be able to lower their rent, they're not making the money when it comes to that. what Vice Mayor Caleri just mentioned regarding the interior grants, I would be in support of something like that if you tie it to rent control for those property for an extended period of time. In other words, I'm not looking to do what we've done in the past where we give the grants for interior and then the property owner says, okay, now that I've got it fixed, I can get a lot more money for rent and potentially exhausting the ability for an individual to be able to survive because we gave them free money. We updated their building. Their value goes up, so they feel that their rent should go up, and it defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do. We're trying to fill that space, not fill their pockets. We should. They're not interested. Correct. It needs to go hand in hand. So we have some money that we can do towards these things, but it needs to have a comprehensive approach in order for us to have the tenant that we're looking for. And goes back to what I was looking, that I asked for permission from the board, and the board said I should do it. I will be more than happy to work with you, which is create a survey for the new tenant of what it is that they're looking for in their downtown. Neighborhood services. In other words, are we looking for a Pilates studios? Are we looking for the kickboxing studios? And the ones that they do exist, can we provide them a list of where these people are through a QR code? If we look into market the downtown, we should have a QR code for marketing that it's not so cumbersome. The one complaint that I get time after time after time is that when they go to the City of Hollywood webpage, they go insane. They can't find something in the way that they can find in other places. So we need to be able to create something that they can look at and says, I'm looking for this, and it's there or it's not. So your marketing, when it comes to this, needs to go hand in hand with the survey needs.
Can you address that, Joanne? Because I know Commissioner Hernandez has mentioned that before. I know you're working on it.
Exactly. So we have the piece, we have the QR code, and we have the survey ready to go.
Okay.
But we wanted to tie that piece to the coupon incentive. It's a multi-prong. So there's that piece for the new residents that are coming out. There's also the same QR code for residents right now, but we were waiting for a comprehensive rollout.
Well, here's the thing that I would ask. Break it down, because if we try to wait and do everything at one time, that's where we encumber so many things that people get lost in it. The survey, I have approval for us to be able to send a survey. I like to be able to put my name on it and put my office number as well, in case they need to be able to do something like that. And then, based on the results of that survey, we can address step 2, which is the QR codes and the coupons. We can, bless you, we can go to our businesses and say, this is what the residents of the downtowns are looking for. What are you willing to do? Because I've talked to some of the businesses that says, hey, look, we're willing to give them a dessert if they buy a meal. We're willing to give them the second drink if they buy a drink. But we're not willing to give them the first drink, because they take the first drink and they go to the next place and get another drink and what have you. So it needs to make sense for the business people as well as value for those residents. But we need to bring them in. And then we can always have them be able to track that. And how they track that would be part of the QR code and their credit card. If the people pay in cash, then they pay in cash. But if they pay with a credit card, we know where that credit card is registered from. So that is the plan that we need to have in order for us to grow the downtown into what we're looking to do. And this is how we will get more and more participation from the businesses in the downtown. Parking, as it was mentioned by the vice chair, is already being created. So and I haven't heard as much complaint as parking as we have in the past. What we have heard is there are some streets, because of the RPP, that don't have any parking, being that the residents are utilizing their parking, but there is creation of parking. And one of the things that I've spoken with Javon about, and I've spoken with the parking director, is we're going to be looking at those streets to see if the opportunity for meter parking payment, not necessarily permits, yearly permits, but meter parking payments to be available, so that whenever we have an event, those people are not precluded from parking there, and we can get a premium for those parking. And that's something, whether we can do that or whether we go to permit,
Sometimes you got to hold Javon back from charging all that he wants to charge.
Well, no, and you know what? That's a fair statement, but, or we may need to go to permits. But the problem that we have with permits is then the people that we're trying to attract to the downtown don't have the ability to do it. And to give it and take it back, it becomes problematic. Now we've taken it back, we need to be able to see how we can implement that. If somebody's willing to pay the premium, then we let it do so. But if we do it where it becomes a yearly permit, and then we have a surge because of what we're trying to do for the downtown, and we need the parking, it's difficult to get it back from those individuals. And let's remember, those individuals already have design and the designated parking in their structures. So it's a great approach. I like to be able to see what the survey says and see if we can put in some comments, so that it's not all done by the time we get it. And then work with you guys in order to get that survey out and see what the results is.
Thank you, Commissioner Hernandez. You're very on the ground downtown, and you're communicating with business owners. You're really interested, I think, in knowing what the new residents want and to complement the existing ones. So I appreciate your willingness to really get into the trenches. Always. Let's go to Board Member Biederman.
Lots of information to ponder. But that being said, there's lots of ideas that we're tossing around. Just some things that I wanted to mention. I like the idea that Commissioner Hernandez brought up about helping to bring some of the empty storefronts up to code with some grant money, but it's got to be tied to some kind of rent stabilization. Same as we do with workforce housing. We provide money, they provide affordable rents. We could provide some upgrades to some of these, especially on some of the historical buildings that have some of those upgrade issues. And we want to maintain those historical buildings, but we don't want to maintain the historical fire threats. Life safety is very important. I like the idea that you are doing geofencing advertising. A lot of people are and I'm saying that because my next comment might be irrelevant at this time, but a lot of people are cutting the cord. So it's got to be out of the box thinking on how to get information to the marketplace. That being said, some of these new buildings might have closed circuit TV or cable connect as part of the rent. So they might have their own channel that we might be able to advertise on. Whether it's Hotwire or whoever else they're doing. Not everybody's cutting the cord, although I have. On page 15, you talked about this flyer with the QR code multiple times. Is this going to be distributed to all the residents? Is there a distribution channel or an idea that you have in mind?
For this document, we were planning on printing we targeted 6 of the new buildings that are downtown, Bread Building, Hollywood Heights, etc. And we were going to print. We try not to print too much as a green city. We try to be more of a electronic digital, but we are printing. I think it was about 1,000 copies, and then the team was going to go to the buildings, to the property owners, and put this out here. We're also asking them for their distribution list within the buildings to get that information that we could potentially use.
Okay, perfect. I love that idea. We should be doing it in-house with our water bill contact list.
Well, once I finish working with Commissioner Hernandez for the overall residential survey, then we can make that happen.
All right. We're not talking about tourism as part of this presentation, but I think it needs to be a discussion either now or at a later date. We can't rely on the county because we know that they don't give us the attention that we pay for or collect taxes for. But maybe we can do some kind of a outside position, a consultant, that maybe we can co-op fund through, I'm sure the Diplomat goes to travel shows throughout the country, or Margaritaville does, but maybe we can co-op a consultant that we can pay to go to travel shows in the Northeast and the Central, North Central and stuff like that, to get word out that when they come to South Florida, it's not just the big cities to our north and south, but it's us. And it's not just the hotels, but it's the restaurants in downtown and the restaurants on the beach. So that might be an idea too.
Hold your horses, Peter.
You
we
could
have-
buzz back in.
You can buzz back in.
Tourism consultant, let's see.
Reaching out to the hotels.
And I love the idea of this, but maybe we can have, and I mentioned this the other day, but like co-op advertising. The CRA used to do a co-op advertising piece where the businesses in downtown would contribute for a quarter page or an eighth page, and then the CRA would buy a full page and feature the businesses that are in downtown. That might be something to think about also. And then lastly, talking about Commissioner Vice Chair's comment about a bridge going over Young Circle. That might not be a bad idea. I think some people in the audience, well, they're not in the audience anymore, might not like it. But we also talked about circulation in downtown with the garages, and we have the circuit that should help, but it's a little bit more cumbersome than we originally intended it to be. So I'm wondering how much money it would take in our budget to fund a couple of pedicabs in downtown a couple of nights a week that can circulate through the garages and bring people from the garages to the downtown core, especially with the furthest garage over at the Polk Street. I can't imagine that it would be that expensive, and it would be something that some of our downtowns might use. The Hard Rock used to use it. They are used at some of the festivals, like Renaissance Festival. You have about 10 of them going in and out of the parking lot. So maybe we can have a couple of them in downtown and see how that works if it's accepted. And it would, might be the buzz of the, everybody can talk about downtown Hollywood that has the pedicabs at it now. I'm sure, they're in other cities too, but I haven't seen them recently somewhere, but that might be an idea if we can RFP or RFQ or find out what the cost, I can't imagine it would be. In our grand budget, how much could it possibly be?
All right, we're getting creative. I love it.
And I think that is, that's it. Why wasn't, and I'm afraid to ask sometimes, but why wasn't the Tropic on the slide? Are they not moving in?
Occupancy?
Very few occupants?
This was just a sampling.
Okay.
We love the Tropic. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
People
No,
should
I
go
know.
and rent there. It's gorgeous.
It's-
Beautiful view.
Thank you.
Let's get to
Yes.
Board Member Quintana.
Thank you, Chair. Joanne, I just wanted to say, great presentation. Thank you to you and your team for the hard work I know you've done to put all of this together. And I love all your creative ideas that you've brought forth. I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.
And then I also just wanted to support the idea of the rent stabilization as part of whatever incentives we offer for new incoming businesses. I think that's brilliant. And I also want to support the idea of the survey really guiding who we try to recruit to diversify the business base downtown. And I think if we get a good mix of businesses that are what people want, that people will want to stay and linger longer, and it won't be just in and out. We went to a restaurant and we went home. So I think that's just key, and I think it's a wonderful idea, and I just love the pedicab idea and want to support you in bringing that forth. So those were the three things that stuck in my mind that I wanted to make sure I said out loud were just excellent, and thank you for your work.
All right, we're going to do a final round real quick with some folks who want to maybe expressed support, and maybe it stimulated some other ideas for hearing from our colleagues. So let's go to Board Members Hernandez and Gruber, and then we'll wrap it up.
Thank you, Mayor. Did Commissioner Biederman, one of the things you talked about was having an individual that would go and represent us because you don't feel that we're being properly represented from the county at this point? Years ago, we worked with the chamber to have an individual that would actually go to trade shows, whether they were national or international, and we kind of share that expense and that particular position with the chamber. This way, we don't have to create a position here, and they're more nimble to be able to do things. So I would say if we're looking for something like that, to reach out to the chamber, talk to maybe Marie, and see if that's a possibility so that we can go back to some of those where we actually had accountability as to where our money went. I don't know if there's support for that from the board.
So I can react. Go ahead.
Pleased that you are supportive of the chamber.
Well, it's not that I'm saying supportive of the chamber. I'm supportive of what we used to do because it used to have results more so than what we're seeing now, and it was at a fraction of a cost.
So let me just weigh in real quick on the idea of sending people to far and away trade shows. I don't think that's a good place for us to spend our dollars. The county, promotes Visit Lauderdale as a whole, and just remember, while we are part of it, although we do feel represented, or not prioritized in the messaging as far as like the city name. I don't disagree with that. I've mentioned it many times at the tourism meetings. What we're really talking about here is how do we drive people to downtown as opposed to filling hotel beds on the beach. And so I think it's more valuable for us to spend our energy on getting the tourists that are already on the beach in the hotels to downtown. The idea of a display at the Diplomat and at Margaritaville and at the Marriott and at any other hotel that will allow a display in their lobby is key for people to realize. Even I see people visiting from out of town and playing paddleball at the paddleball courts and I say to myself, do these people even know that they can go downtown for the night and not just feel like the beach is what they have to do? So, where these visitors are congregating, the beach and hotels and everywhere there, we need to push downtown as a nightlife and as another destination to the thousands, the tens of thousands, the millions of people that are on Hollywood Beach. And that's our initial, besides the residents and the overall, surrounding market.
Well,
So I think we put our dollars there. That's where we get.
And by the way, it's a simple sign on the paddleball fence. And I know we may not allow signs on fencing, but we do allow them for school board for them to advertise their sponsors. So charity starts at home. Maybe it's a way of letting those people know that there's a businesses in downtown. I don't think that you're going to find the restaurants and the entertainment on the beach going to be advertising much of the downtown because that's taking food away from them.
the hotels.
But just in the hotels, they'll work with you to a certain point, but the marketing that we had years ago that we thought it was going to work, where we gave incentive for bring people downtown, they weren't advertising that because it takes away from their own entertainment and their own venues. And not to misconstrue that we're sending people throughout the world. It's in order to enhance what the Broward County is already doing. And if we can give some incentive to the chamber to be able to send a representative from the city of Hollywood to highlight the downtown and the beach, not just the downtown. I mean, we're talking about the CRA altogether. It's
Another way to do it.
It's pennies on the dollars that we're going to be able to get results out of. And I would just try to see if we could work something like that out and not necessarily thinking that we're going to send them throughout the world.
All right, let's keep moving here. Board Member Gruber, then Shuham, and then we'll wrap up.
Yep, that'll be quick. I love the pedicab idea. You can see those maybe circling around to all the different, like maybe make a route so you know that they're going around to the different parking garages and circling around downtown. So I definitely support that. I wouldn't really support sending somebody to a trade show, and when we are talking about bringing people to downtown, but rather than that, I'd run a commercial that we could do for Visit Hollywood. Maybe we're doing that in the Northeast. There's been lots of these winter days where a nice picture of our beach and a weather forecast might have drawn some people down from New York. I know a lot of them are excited to get out of there. So just... Right, visit Hollywood, Florida. Like we could do a commercial, run it in Boston and in New York, especially in the wintertime, showing our beautiful beach and our downtown and that type of stuff.
Commissioner, I just wanted to say one thing too. So the for our destination marketing, very small buy right now, but IPW is one of the, if not the largest convention for travel and travel writers in the world. It is being held at Fort Lauderdale Convention Center this year. We have a booth, we have a presence. We will have Miss Arlene there with our 60 dedicated appointments with these travel writers. Additionally, Margaritaville is working on a Wednesday night event that will have a presence with it well. So in order to try to conserve the limited dollars we have this year, with our focus being economic development downtown, for destination, we're targeting the people who just happen to be coming here and not going to Las Vegas this year. So we're going to try and maximize that. Of course, we also have FIFA happening this year as well. We have 2 watch parties, so we're going to be hitting that. We just put our post up yesterday, 100 days, along with everybody else on social media. So we're trying to leverage those type of events to get people to downtown.
Okay. Then focusing on the consultant, from my standpoint, it's most important to me that their function is drawing in new businesses as opposed to, a bunch of data and whatnot from that report. What I want to see is that they're able to bring in operators. Yeah. I would be in support of that interior grant. I'm not crazy about the rent stabilization. What I'd almost rather see is that a landlord brings to us the potential business, and then we can analyze it through whatever criteria that business gets some grant money, especially if it's these older structures that just have the aging plumbing and electric, and they would have to do so much more work in that type of building than they would somewhere else, whether it's in Hollywood or whether some or another city, just because to tie it into rent stabilization and this and that. I don't know. I'm not crazy about it. I'm not totally against it, but I'd rather see it. Let's say a Rocco's Tacos or a Broadwalk Pizza wants to open in downtown Hollywood. The landlord brings us, what the business idea is. We vet it. We have a criteria and say, you know what? It's going to cost you an extra $25,000 for the electric in here because it's so dated and ancient and this and that. And because it's a historic building, we're going to need to do this. And maybe we can subsidize the cost for the new business to come in. I'd rather look at it like that. I don't know what you all think.
Another way to do it is to, instead of, just as we're brainstorming here, instead of tying it into the landlord taking the dollars and having a contractual commitment to a reduced rent, you could pay the same incentive over time to the tenant, so long as the tenant is still there, and to help the tenant on the backside that way.
Yep.
As opposed to controlling the rent. But depending on who you give the incentive to, the idea is we want reasonable rents to help the businesses succeed. But it could be again on the tenant side.
Yep. And I would like to know the difference when somebody's coming to rent one of our aging buildings that has never had upgraded plumbing and electric, and now it has to be brought up. What the difference in a newer shopping center or whatever would be, and then we can maybe take a look. Okay, how can we close the gap for businesses to open?
Just to give you an example of something that just happened the other day, a tenant, we're told, came to a property owner and said, we will sign a 30-year long-term lease, but you got to give us a break on the rent because it's a $600,000 investment to get the building, to get the interior to where it needs to be. And that is all my money. That's my operating cash for 3 months. And if I'm going to be doing that and doing the permitting and stuff, then when I'm finally ready to open, I don't have any money,
So my question to that would be that $600,000 build out. What would that have cost in a different building, whether it's in Hollywood or not? What
one of our brand new retail spaces, significantly less.
Right. So Right. So if we want to fill up some of our older buildings, especially the historic ones, we're going to have to figure out a way to bridge the gap for new businesses to come in, because why would you open
Exactly.
a business that's going to cost you a few $100,000 more when you can, right? So
That's the rub right now.
I don't know, are we going to look into that? Do I need support to look into
Well,
that?
I think the board has expressed support to come up with an incentive program to get help to supplement the idea of getting businesses downtown. You've heard some ideas from the board members, and let's come back with,
Yeah,
with what you,
fantastic.
different programs.
Okay,
out what the
great.
funding
Yep,
is.
great, great presentation. And just the last thing, it was refreshing to see the occupancy rate at those buildings, because if you go on Facebook sometimes, somebody takes a picture at 11:30 at night and there's 2 lights on and they say, look, all these buildings are empty. So facts are facts. There's people in there. I don't mind that they're giving incentives. We have an affordable housing crisis right now, which is part of the reason to build housing, because it's a supply and demand issue. So the fact that rents are stabilizing and coming down a little means we're going in the right direction.
And I would just add to that, if you were to drive by my house at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, my lights would be off too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sleeping.
Right.
Me
right.
too.
But appreciate the data for people to actually
Yeah.
see what in fact is going on in those buildings. Yeah.
All right, Board Member Caleri, you just wanted a final comment, and then we're going to wrap it up here.
Just, I think maybe we could look at both rent assistance, like keeping the rent, because we don't want to repeat the same mistakes we've made. And while times are different, we've had issues with providing funding. Businesses come in, and exactly what Commissioner Hernandez said, they get kicked out because they're like, oh, I get, all these renovations I've made, I could get somebody in that will pay a higher price. And then it's unfair to that business owner who wasted their time and efforts to get in. So I think that there may be, we could try 2 different ways, but I really think just, bringing in businesses will be great.
All right, thank you all. Robust discussion, Executive Director.
If I could, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Joanne.
This presentation of information and discussion today was a precursor in remembering our recent discussions that in the near future, you wanted to hold a workshop with the downtown businesses in the downtown to go through more of these details and issues. So if that's still the case, we'll follow that for the near future then.
And I think that should be aligned with Joanne and what she was saying, facilitating the discussion. It would be great for the board to be there and to participate and get firsthand information. Yes?
Yes. All right. Thank you.
And then we'll be equipped with the results of the survey. We'll really get to make some headway there. And I think it's really important for the downtown property owners and the business owners to hear our discussion, to understand where we're coming from, and to know that we expect them to move, and as we want to move too. All right, thank you all so much. So next on our agenda, we've had some patient business owners who are here. I see the Gramanzini family here. I see Mr. Murad here. And so we've got business owners here on the beach as part of the informational report by the executive director on the beach in downtown. There's really a great segue from the discussion we were just having, Joanne. We've been working with these property owners, some of them with completed things to be proud of, and others that are eager to get moving. So let's please share some of the things in progress.
Yes, I am going to, Joanne Hussey again, I'm going to provide a snapshot of several property improvement projects and highlight some of the recent activity. We're going to start with the beach and some of the recently completed projects at 600 North Surf Road. Then we're going to move through some additional properties in active coordination for our discussion. So here is 600 North Surf Road with property owner Joseph M. Sealy, who is here. This PIP was approved by the board on September 6, 2023, and the funding agreement was executed on November 6, 2023. The scope of the work included facade restoration, paint, stucco repairs, and the replacement of exterior stairs. The total project cost was approximately $198,370 with a $50,000 reimbursement through the PIP program. This represented a CRA contribution of roughly 25%, along with significant private investment by the owner. Given the property's size and its prominent location along the Broadwalk, this property represents a meaningful investment for both the CRA and the city.
Let's see those after photos.
You're rushing me. I can take a hint. Okay, so I will skip forward then. So fast forward to today, where you now see a clean, neutral coastal white finish accented with bold orange
forward.
vertical elements to give the building a sharp,
forward, Joanne.
contemporary feel. The second floor balcony railings were upgraded to the frameless glass system, which opens up the sight lines. And it enhances the elevation for a more modern presence along the Broadwalk.
Yes.
The additional facade upgrades include a geometric stucco detail, and the exterior staircase was also painted in that same bold orange with glass railing.
Beautiful.
The property has the clean, cohesive look that I mentioned. From a process standpoint, the paint was just finalized about a month ago, and the project has been fully completed. So the team is now working, yes, that's applause. The team is now working with the applicant on the grant reimbursement process so they can get their money.
Get your money.
We are headed.
Joanne, before we
Sorry?
get there, I just if the owners would like to come up and say anything, or tell us the experience that you've gone through. I know it was long, and I know you had to overcome a lot of building challenges over time. But we've been talking about property owners and business owners for today for many hours, and you've been one of them listening in. And so tell us, where you're at. How do you feel? Your excitement about this new project?
So first off, thank you guys for all your help and patience. We've been doing this for, like you said, almost 3 years now, going back and forth. One of the things that I want to say is we started off thinking that it was going to cost about $190,000. We went well above that amount.
Yeah.
Standing where we are, we ended up doing a lot more other than just the facade and the painting and the glass railings. We discussed on our last CRA meeting here that we were potentially thinking about doing flooring for the entrance of the building. Glass doors for all the stores and the retail, which we ended up doing everything else as well. As well.
Beautiful.
We also needed to talk about maybe changing some signage and adding some more stuff, which we did.
And
Thank you.
Looks amazing. Thank you for your investment. We look forward to this building being, well maintained and obviously now improved to last, many decades ahead for the ownership and for the tenants, and it's a really great result.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, as we head north, 200 Garfield Street is home to Florio's on the Broadwalk. Property owner Dr. Massimo Gramanzini is also here with us today, has expressed a strong desire to modernize his building facade while still respecting the historic character of the area. He's currently working with Development Services team on his application to the Historic Preservation Board. This is a required step as the property is located well within the Hollywood Beach Historic Overlay District, which generally runs from Surf Road between Sherman Street and Jefferson Street, including the Broadwalk. At the same time, CMed is coordinating with the doctor to begin his formal property improvement application, and that would support a comprehensive facade improvement. So here's some of the conceptual renderings that were provided by the doctor's architect for the project.
A lot of ooh-la-las in the audience here.
They illustrate upgraded and modernized structure with a clean and cohesive look for the Broadwalk. The architect, I'm told, is also present here today if you have any design-related questions.
I'd love for Massimo and the architect to come on up and tell us about this. I know they've been wanting to do this for a long time. So, Dr. G. And this is a conceptual drawing here.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my architect had to leave,
Okay.
so I guess I'm stuck doing this. So, but I appreciate the opportunity here. But yeah, you can see this building here. So my name is Massimo Gramanzini. My family and I own several properties on the Boardwalk as well as on the side streets that lead up to the Boardwalk, including the Boardwalk Restaurant, the Senora Frogs building. But particularly this building on 200 Garfield Street is really near and dear to my heart because it's been in our family for for close to 40 years. My dad actually my dad started a restaurant back in the mid-'80s called the Patio Restaurant. And then he fell in love with the beach and ended up purchasing the building in the late 80s and then created Angelo's Corner. So I don't know if you guys have been around the beach for a long time. So Angelo's Corner is was a staple on the beach there. I grew up there. I worked there as a teenager. Met my wife in Hollywood Beach. So it's near and dear to my heart. Every time I walk by this building, I kind of cringe a little bit just because I think it really has taken a downward turn as far as aesthetics, and it's just 1960 building, so it's time. And so we came. The mayor had approached us a couple years ago about this, and I was really happy about it. And we came up with this design. We just need to, bring it up to the modern age and revitalize it. This property is very unique because I believe it's the entrance to the beach. Garfield Street parking lot. People walk by this building. It's just represents Hollywood Beach, I feel. So we feel that this rendering here that we have is pretty modern. It's not. It's really just a facade change. We're not knocking the building down or anything like that. We would have liked to go second floor and do a whole thing like that, but that didn't work out with the way things are with the codes and stuff like that. So we came up with this, and this is, I believe, is a great representation of what we want the beach to look like. And I hope you guys agree and help us through this process. And just recently, we also owned the building right next door, which I think was on that list, 15.
Joanne can actually fast forward to that.
Hold that thought if you
Yeah.
want.
Sure.
Here, do you want to grab your?
Yeah.
We're going to get a 2-for-1 here.
Yeah, here we go. Okay.
Lucky to have you. Lucky to have a property owner like this who wants to make investments and can. So.
Okay. At 512 North Broadway, this property, also owned by the doctor, is functional, but it is dated, as he said. Willing to explore the facade enhancements to modernize the building so it better aligns with the improved look and the investment. The renderings that I'm going to show you were created by AI in my office. Okay.
Imagination, yeah.
My office, okay? So please keep in mind, this is an artistic rendering, that nobody is agreeing to anything. This
I'm
is
sure the
just
prompt
kind
was
of-
good.
Okay, here we go. Okay,
Okay.
Okay.
yes. Of course, any ideas,
That Grok or ChatGPT? I'm kidding.
telling you my stories.
Could have been Claude, but that's secret
Could be
now.
more contemporary, and I think that's, that was it.
Yeah.
So it was those two.
Doc, what do you think?
Tones, et cetera.
Well, let's hear from Dr. Garmanzini. What he thinks of the imagination. Do you see yourself being able to? Are you inspired by these renderings, Dr. Garmanzini?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this was just brought to my attention literally, like I'd say about a month ago. I didn't want to. I mean, I always wanted to renovate this too, but I'm navigating all these little projects with the city, and I'm like, I don't know if I should throw in another project, But when I saw this, I was like,
we might promise quick permits, okay?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going 2 years now for Garfield Street, so no, but I'm sure we'll get it through. But yeah, when I saw this, I was like, this is great. I mean, I think this is what we're trying to do on the beach there, and I think it's just a great representation of just a modern, clean look that I think will attract families and attract people like as they're walking down that boardwalk and think, wow, this is great. This is a great addition to the community.
Yeah, it makes the tenants' storefront more attractive to shop into.
Yep. So yeah, I'm all for it. I just, I'm want to thank the mayor for helping me get through all of this, or going through all of this, and connecting me with the right people to get this project moving and jump all the hoops.
Yeah, we're eager to see it done. Some board members might want to make some comments and give you ideas or
questions or anything.
Address these. Board member Caleri, Ben Hernandez.
Can you go back to the original slide where you have, keep going, there, stop. On your original design, you know, you have this overhang awning, but on the design, if you go back one more.
Are you talking about?
You see that purple awning? Here, it doesn't show a coverage. Will you
Right,
still be
so-
having outdoor seating there, or what is your?
Yeah, there's still outdoor seating there, but we didn't put the awning because it's a unique situation where we own both properties, but the patio is halfway on the second property. So I don't know if the city's going to allow us to
Continue, like
Continue.
grandfather you in?
yeah, to put that awning on there because it's going over.
But you
two
own the
properties.
property right next door.
Right next to it, yeah.
It's your
So-
property.
So it's our property, but we, in the past, we had asked to renovate, and they said, oh, well, you have to combine the properties and do a unity of title, but we didn't want to do that.
Just a document. You just file a document and it gets done. Just saying.
No, I know what it is, yeah, we didn't want to do that for personal reasons, but the bottom line is we're still going to have a patio there and maybe umbrellas over there. You know, and I don't know if there's another way of doing it. I'd love to have that overhang there, but I don't see the city approving that.
Well, hopefully they hear us. I think that
good to hear
would
this.
cause you a little bit, you know, that patio
Well, the patio's it's still going to be there. There's still going to be
Right, but it's
seating.
not gonna have you'll have the umbrellas, which, listen, we know storms run in, people run it. It creates a
creates a
challenge,
problem.
and people love to sit in there because I'm one of them that's been there since
Right.
I was a teenager.
I-
So I would hate to see that coverage disappear because people need that protection from the sun. We talk about it all the time. So however we can work with the city, let's
I
look
would
and
love
see
to
how-
have it. I just, you know.
But then my question is, what would you do? Because if you were able to put that, would
Mm-hmm.
you put an awning? Or would you put what would you,
Well, we maybe follow the same aluminum.
Aluminum?
Yeah, as the overhangs are on
Okay.
there now. I don't know if you've seen our other property, the Broadwalk Restaurant. We have those overhangs there, similar to that. So that type of material, I think, would be good. And they even have them now where you can open them and close them, you know, if you want the sun or if it's raining or, you know.
Okay,
So it'd be
perfect.
great. So maybe we can come up with some type of easement agreement or something between the two properties. But again, we own both properties, so for us, it doesn't matter. It's really for you guys because,
Right.
you know,
And it's been
I know
there
I
for so
proposed
long,
it
so-
one time before, and they said, well, no, that property is infringing on here, and you'd have to do a unity of title, and we just,
All right, well,
so you hear our concerns out there, our permitting people and easement people.
Andrea
But,
Wingett.
I think it's really important. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Board Member Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. Air right lease. You could, one property would probably lease to the other the air rights for that particular area and present that to the building department. That will probably take care of the issue. And I can understand why you would not want to have unity of title because if you want to sell one versus the other, it will complicate things. I just remember decades and decades ago playing paddleball in Garfield Beach and actually coming by and getting a slice of pizza.
of course, yeah, it's iconic. It's an iconic location.
So when you're redoing this, are the side windows still going to be available?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because that was the thing that I remember the most is actually coming up to the side windows.
Of course.
Able to get my slice.
Of course.
Great job.
Do we have a picture of the side?
There it is right there. You could see it. And it's-
So the one thing that always bugged me is like if you're in the parking lot, right, and you're walking up Garfield to come to the beach, you know, do you have that picture? I can see. The bottom line is you see the back of this restaurant. There's a dumpster.
Yeah.
There's all. It's just
You could
doesn't
smell it,
look
too.
very inviting, you know. So that's why this design. What we did is we continued that high wall around the back and enclosed the dumpster, and we kind of faced off that whole area. So when you come by there, it's just going to look more appealing. And then we also came up with this. You know, I was talking to the mayor about this too, and a couple other people from the city planners to put some type of artwork on that wall saying, you know, welcome to Hollywood. And it's like a 3D artwork where I'm working with one of the art people now. And I just think it will become more iconic where people will be taking pictures there. And it's just, you know, it's just the entrance to the beach. So it needs to be something special. The way it is right now, it's just kind of an eyesore to me.
All right, let's get Board Member Hernandez. Did you?
No, I just wanted to make sure that window prevails.
Okay.
and Continues on.
The window will be there, yes.
I heard Board Member Schumer.
Any restaurateur knows how valuable that window is.
And that's part of the historic part of that building, just
Yeah.
in case you need that.
Board Member Shuham, I think you were a strong second to that window.
Yes. Been to the window many times. I think they're beautiful. I think Joanne has a side gig as an exterior designer. And it's interesting, that they all kind of have a similar flow. But my question really is for Joanne. But I just want to say thank you so much for everything
Absolutely.
you're doing to make the Broadwalk look so beautiful.
My pleasure.
It's really
Thank you.
exciting. Joanne, my question for you is, we spent a lot of time and effort and energy on pastel palette for the beach. And so I love these designs, but clearly we're not encouraging what we were encouraging. So what's the status of that, and why aren't we?
This is just the first go at the
Right, it's just
rendering.
a rendering. I would defer to Susan on the
We'll
on the
definitely be
color
recommending
palette.
better
So are
coloring.
you suggesting that it's going to be painted a different color than?
I think this is just an initial look, and I think we're going to talk about, when we talk about the artwork and we talk about the front facade, it could have more bright colors. Obviously, property owner needs to buy in, but I think this is like step one. I don't think he just wants a plain, totally white building. He talked about artwork and making it pop. So this is just step one.
I mean, I think it's
Is that correct, Dr. Gramazzini? We do.
looks very, it's similar to what they've done at the.
We might have not had the color palette discussion yet with them. So.
Yeah, we're open to, that this is just a rendering that we had come up with. We're open to different colors. We wanted to introduce different materials too on the
Yeah.
building to give it just a little bit more dimension.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I love this. But as a general CRA effort, we had talked about, creating more colors along the Broadwalk.
Okay.
And the only other thing, for just as long as you're here, we've talked a lot about mosaic versus paint, and Susan and her staff will work with you, I know, on all of that. But
Yes.
mosaic on the side of this building.
Yeah, originally we had do we have a picture of the mural or no? Originally there was a mural on there, and then the feedback we got was, which I agree with, basically, murals are paint, and with the weather, it's gonna,
Yes, it's very
So we went to the mosaic tiles, similar to where, near the band shell there, where they have
Exactly.
that, they have all that stuff on the building.
More money up front, but we'll save you money in the long run.
Right, and we're open to that. And then just recently, they came up with this 3D artwork that comes off the building. So, again, we're pretty open to any of that stuff. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much. It's really gorgeous.
Board Member Biederman.
So my comments were just basically, first of all, I love the idea of the mural or the artwork or whatever it's going to be, but I would have loved to see more vibrant colors, even on the Angelo's Corner building, or Florio's now. Oh, yeah, sorry. It just doesn't look like it.
I know.
Well, that is the Florio's building, yeah.
Right, but so that's great. But again, more vibrant colors, whatever it takes, even to kind of like bounce off what we have on the new paint job on the garage. But I love that orange on the last building, and just more vibrancy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Gramazzini. Let's give them a round of applause, please.
Appreciate it.
And Mrs. Gramazzini.
Okay, moving on. So right next door to that, just south, is 1504 North Broadwalk. This is a two-story retail structure with a strong pedestrian visibility, but again, the dated exterior. The building is active and activated, but the facade doesn't fully reflect the level of reinvestment that we are seeking. We are still trying to reach out to the owner, who recently, I guess, inherited this property, to discuss potential participation in the PIP program. And while we haven't been able to connect yet, we did launch our AI technology to kind of give an idea of what potentially it could be for that location.
That's amazing.
Sorry.
And I'll just point out that if this property were to be done too, together with the two properties we just talked about with Dr. Gramazzini, that would complete the entire block, because the only other property on the block is that new, 3 or 4 story building that's undergoing all that investment now to be a
That's
vibrant.
correct.
So we'd have a fresh new full block when and if all these are done. So it's exciting.
Moving on from the beach, so this property is located along South Ocean Drive. It's transitioning right now from a mini PIP to a comprehensive PIP due to the expanded scope of improvements. Unlike the earlier facade-focused projects, this effort includes broader infrastructure and resiliency upgrades. The proposed scope includes turtle-friendly lighting, full parking lot repaving and restriping, landscape enhancements, and the installation of approximately 200 impact-rated doors. In addition, the seawall restoration has already been completed as a private investment by the owner. The initial scope of this work was estimated at approximately $52,000 per building, with the inclusion of the impact-rated doors adding about $333,000 to the overall project cost. What's important about this project is that it improves safety, storm resiliency, and environmental compliance with the area. Plus, it also enhances the overall look. This is a meaningful investment from the waterfront side as well. So beyond the PIP improvement, the owner has also invested private funds of approximately $500,000 in concrete restoration, $350,000 in seawall repairs, $275,000 for a new roof as well, and those were all completed outside of the PIP program. So here are some of the renderings that kind of show the lighting and the landscaping and the new seawall. Whoops. Yes, and the new roof. Taken together, this project demonstrates the evolution of the PIP program from smaller facade improvements that are now ushering in larger, more comprehensive investments that are addressing long-term resiliency, compliance, and overall property value at the beach. Okay, and so now shifting gears to, this was an inquiry from Vice Mayor a little while ago about Lincoln Street. So Laura Becklin is here for the property. This property is located at 2134 Lincoln Street, and it was approved by the board in January 15 of 2025. The original scope of this project included impact windows and doors, exterior paint and stucco improvements, and new signage. It was overall a straightforward project, but at the time, the board included a contingency. Staff was directed to work with the applicant to explore potential creation of a parking lot to improve access. That expanded consideration held the funding agreement, which is yet to be executed with the applicant. And so then they just started to take a look at what we could do for the parking lot. They have also met with Development Services to talk about what some of the options were. So this is the current condition right now. As we see, it's got the two separate parking lots, and here is what they were looking to do. So they were looking to paint, as I mentioned, and do the impact windows and doors, etc. The image on the right is also, this is what they started looking at for the parking lot, to connect the two existing parking lots towards the front of the building to add more parking and to improve the traffic flow. When they started to look at that, it was really expensive, like over $280,000 to do this type of an improvement, not including the architectural drawings and the other associated costs. As part of the original CPIP, you granted an additional $15,000 to address the parking lot, and it just has come back as very, very expensive. So staff would like to continue to work with this property owner, and I'm making the recommendation that we separate the parking lot project, take off the contingency, so they can move forward with getting the paint, the stucco repair, and the new doors and get that done. And then we address the parking and parking lot issue at a later date. So that's up for your consideration.
Board members, is that good? Joanne wants to see this move, and then parking lot would be like a second phase, pending, funding and things like that, right, on their side. So I just would like some feedback given to Joanne. I'm supportive of seeing the impact window improvement and the paint, if that's what we're gonna, Board Member Kaleri says she wants to go forward with it.
I just would like it not to be forgotten, that's all. Like, let's figure out how we can move forward with addressing the parking issue because of what was already expressed at that last meeting, that there were issues with the parking in the swale. Let's just, try to find a way of how we can make that move forward.
All right, no objection for your recommendation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So that concludes, these are all the updates that we have for the projects right now. I think we've addressed if there's any additional questions that we haven't addressed.
No, I think it's great to have had an opportunity to have these business owners come in and actually move things along. Joanne, and you show us what you're working on in real time, get some quick feedback for us so you don't, reach 90% and then get an issue. So keep bringing them forward. Let's keep working collaboratively. We want to encourage, we want to push, we want to support, and we want to move things forward. So thank you all so much
Thank you,
for
Mayor.
coming. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, Executive Director, it is almost noon time. We have a 1 p.m. City Commission meeting. So is there anything left on the informational report?
No, I think we covered all of that. I can make some brief comments at the end, but we can go into comments if you like.
All right, let's run through our any board member comments today. Let's go with Board Member Quintana. Downtown or beach?
I think I've talked too much already today.
I feel the same way about me. Let's go ahead to Board Member Shuham.
Thanks. Just briefly, I wanted to find out at Keating Park, and I know Susan just stepped out, but maybe, Sarita, we had talked about a small play area. Are you guys still looking at that? Go ahead.
Chris, does anybody want to respond to that? Come on up. I mean, Executive Director is nodding yes, so.
While you're coming up, I just want to, I know Bob Glickman had mentioned it, but thank Public Works for the patchwork on Hollywood Boulevard Bridge, but could use a little more TLC too. So
A little concrete.
with FDOT on there. Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, good afternoon. Chris Cressito, Project Manager with the Hollywood CRA. Just to address your question, Board Member Shuham, regarding that tot lot, we're still looking at options there as far as equipment, but just to keep in mind, there was a significant dollar amount with a lot of the grading and prep work that needed to be done, so we're still working on that number.
You had talked about even something along a big wall, like a climbing wall, that kind of thing, under the pavilion.
The pavilion does have its number of challenges on what you can anchor in there, but I think the idea would be working more toward the west side of that empty area.
Look forward to seeing what you come up with.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Board Member Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. I like what's happening in the downtown. People seem to be showing up more and more. A question that I have, because in Joanne's presentation said that she has limited amount of buy money for some of the things. So do we have an update with Cinema Paradiso? And is it time for us to actually say, okay, we've had enough for the loss. We need that money somewhere else. The reason we didn't do that before was because it was the beginning, but we're somewhere out there. If that's okay, because we were told that we were going to have regular updates as to where the money is being spent and the result of that money, and we haven't seen anything. So some of the residents are asking. So if we could do that, that would be great.
We will do that.
And also for some of the residents that are asking, what hat am I wearing? Basically, they had the police department and the fire department, along with other different municipal police departments, had the Battle of the Badges, and the city of Hollywood HPD won. Again, and the fire department came in second place, so I told them whoever won, I would wear their shirt, so I am wearing, and so is Commissioner Biederman is wearing the police department shirt, but I was able to get a hat from the fire department, so sorry, Chief, and thank you, Chief, for both. I'm representing them both. Thank you.
All right, I love it. Let's go to Board Member Vice Chair Kaleri for any comments? Waves. Board Member Gruber, you're usually pretty concise. Go ahead.
Just real quick, I actually met Rich out on A1A yesterday to walk where we're talking about what we was talking about with the light. And I did want to find out where we are with getting some recommendations for the mid-block crosswalks, because it's a really long stretch with nowhere to legally cross. And I think we directed staff to do that a while back. Do we know where we're at with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the overhead lines north of Carolina Street were de-energized about a week and a half ago. So our contractor had started to do some soft digs. I sent out an update yesterday. I think everybody was copied. The contractor is ready to start the installation of the foundation of the traffic signal in like mid-April. And the engineering study that is being done for the mid-block crossings, the city engineering has been overseeing that. They can provide an update. They've had Merlin Engineering out there, and I know that they've already started.
Okay.
And I think they can provide an update on the status of that study.
That would be great. Yeah, if we could get an update on that, I'd appreciate it. And then just one other thing quickly. I used that QR code in the presentation before for downtown to see if it was working, and it took me. So I just want to remind everybody to Resident Wednesdays, which is today. For those of people who don't know, participating businesses give 15% off to residents of Hollywood. You can go on our website and see which ones participate. Some really good restaurants in there. So I just wanted to remind everybody.
Thank you. Let's go to Board Member Biederman for any comments today.
So I wanted to bring up the Carolina Street thing too. My recollection was that we were going to hold off on Carolina Street till we knew what we were doing with the crosswalks mid-blocks. That was my recollection. So when we're moving ahead with Carolina Street, I was a little confused.
Isn't Carolina where the Marriott is, and we have an agreement with the hotel? And
Right. We
passed,
Yeah, we went back and reviewed that, just to be clear and know that the majority direction was to proceed with the PED signal and then allow the other to progress as well, but not to hold off on the PED signal. Yeah.
That's a crosswalk in itself when the signal gets put in, right, Susan?
That's a pedestrian-operated signal at
Yeah.
Carolina Street.
Right.
Yes.
So it'd be great to supplement it, not hold that back
As long
and
as it
stop.
doesn't turn into a solid or a regular traffic light that is going to back traffic up and make things worse on A1A.
Yep.
But I do like the new work on the bridge, coming off of the bridge, where it looks like it's going to be a little bit wider or an extra lane. Is that what I'm seeing there? Does anybody know?
I mean, there's a seawall that's been put in. I don't think we're going to gain any additional lane. That's not part
So it
of
was the seawall was just stabilization. It wasn't to create an extra lane.
correct. I mean, as far as I can recollect.
Anything for additional lineage.
And then the other thing is the beach truck ordinance. I thought we already put something in place that trucks were only allowed delivering during certain hours and all. And listen, I've experienced it too when I go there and there's a truck blocking a road for a half hour at a time, and you can't even get onto Surf Road, which is totally ridiculous. And they don't even care. They just stick their thumb up at you and tell you they're doing their job to wait. So I think we need to have something in place if we can try and make sure that there's no trucks trying to get onto, and sometimes they get stuck on Surf Road because they're just too damn big. So if we could have some kind of truck ordinance in place that the trucks have to be certain hours, that they cannot be on those side streets if they're over a certain size or something like that, I think that would be great. With support, unless that's this afternoon issue.
Board Member Shuham on that?
I mean, just to add to that, we've talked about that a lot, maybe before Javan, but we've always talked about this idea of a truck ordinance, but really along A1A, in the mornings, it's bad, like in front of Gigi's and Billy's and all that. And coming off of A1A at Hollywood Boulevard, at that curve, there's trucks there. It's really dangerous. So it is something we've talked about over the years, and I definitely support that.
So is that something you want this afternoon?
Well, we can do it either way, but if there's clear support, obviously the same body, to see what we have in place to change or add to that, and then the enforcement is the key of that too,
Yep.
especially in those early hours.
I think it's a fair thing to look at and see what the options might be under the
Sure.
traffic code. I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Well,
All right.
enforcement.
Well, just to wrap it up, from my perspective, I think today was a very productive meeting. We had a few, important items, even though they were presentations. We're going to get moving real quick on the way pros to help address flooding on the beach. Downtown had a great presentation by CMed on moving the economic opportunity downtown. We had some great property owners here on the beach and downtown, and so we're in good shape. General Counsel, any comments?
No comments, thank you.
Executive Director?
I'll speak
Wrap it
quickly
up.
since I smell something burning.
All
Yes.
right.
Well,
Go ahead.
and I'll be fast. Obviously, we'll carry forth in the interim before the first meeting next month of the CRA with the FDOT secretary to make sure he's prepped. Harrison Street work is actually going ahead of schedule. Had another coffee there, going
All right,
well.
let's wrap it up.
And
All
bye.
right. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Get out, get out, get out, get out. I'm getting out. Bye.